Okay, sweet. Looks like I've got Craig's recording. I'm recording my debate tracker or whatever we're going to call that. So I guess we can jump into it. If are both of you ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
All right, sweet. So thanks everyone for showing up to this Work It Out debate. Today we're going to be talking about the proposition that co-ownership as a concept does not entail a logical contradiction. Advocating for this proposition is going to be Lego, and criticizing this proposition is going to be Zulu. So what's going to happen is this is a free form conversation over the next 60 minutes, and Lego's going to start by basically, I just want you to tell us what your proposition is and what your argument for it is. And Zulu, as soon as he's basically gotten to his conclusion, the conversation is open, and I'll just jump in as necessary. So I think that that is everything I need to say. So Lego, why don't you take it away?
All right. So the proposition again is co-ownership as a concept does not entail a logical contradiction. So basically, what we mean here is that we're not worried about two people disagreeing. That you can have that sort of contradiction. It does have to be a logical contradiction for this proposition to fail. My argument for this is going to be P1, if co-ownership inherently leads to logical contradictions, then it would be impossible to have a hypothetical case of co-ownership without contradiction. It is possible to have a hypothetical case of co-ownership without contradiction. Therefore, co-ownership does not inherently lead to logical contradiction.
All right. We good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So I think premise 2 is false. Um, it is not possible to have a case of co-ownership without contradiction. And I can give my argument for that if we're all good.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
launch right
go
into it.
for it.
Sure. So suppose we have a set of people, A through Z, and we say that they co-own a stick. And suppose A wants to use it to spearfish, and B doesn't want this to happen. So either A is entitled to spearfish, or he isn't. And A owns the stick, if and only if A is entitled to spearfish. That's what it means to own, given our definition. B owns the stick, if and only if A is not entitled to spearfish. Again, just by the definition of ownership we have here. So A and B own the stick, which is our presumption that everybody in the set owns a stick. This implies that A is entitled to spearfish, and A is not entitled to spearfish. This is a contradiction. So P2 is false.
Well, no, because in the case of two people having co-ownership, they would just both have an entitlement. Our definition, you appeal to the definition. The definition doesn't preclude two people from having this entitlement. There isn't this implied if A has the entitlement, then B does not. So you're kind of baking that. I mean, I get why you're arguing it, but it's not part of the definition, so it doesn't make sense to appeal to the definition for that.
Sure, so who gets to control how it's used? If they both have the entitlement to control how it's used, what happens?
They would just follow some agreement. So long as they can come to an agreement that does not have, and we can look at P2 again, so long as it's possible to have a hypothetical case of co ownership, so some sort of agreement without a contradiction, P2 is fine. Just because there's cases that you may come up with that would have a contradiction, that wouldn't be relevant. You would have to show that there can't ever be a case of co ownership without contradiction.
No, so I don't have to show that there is literally zero possible ways for people to agree how to use a thing. That's not what debate's about. It's about co-ownership as a concept does not entail a logical contradiction. So it has to also, co-ownership as the concept, has to also deal with the situations where A and B don't come to an agreement over whether spearfishing happens. So what happens then?
In the case that you're giving, you're saying that you don't have two owners there, so that's not a case of co-ownership having a contradiction. That's a
No,
that's a case of one owner
this is a
disagreeing
case.
with a non-owner. So that's not
No,
applicable.
I'm saying everybody in the set, A through Z, co-owns the stick. They all co-own it. A wants to use it to spearfish, B doesn't want that to happen. And they can't come to an agreement over it. So, what happens? Does the spearfishing go forth or not?
That would be dependent on the agreement they have as
No,
far as
it
the
said they don't have an
co-ownership
agreement.
goes. So they could have a clause. So they could have a clause in their agreement that says, maybe A can use the spear on Mondays, and B can use it on Wednesdays, and then we'll say C can use it on Thursdays. So you could have 7 people co-owning this spear, and they're each. There's no contradiction there, right?
Okay, so do you think that for any co-ownership arrangement, do they require such clauses, which we can get into further later? Right now, do you think that they require such clauses for every possible conflict that could ever happen? So
Well,
they
you
know
didn't
ahead of
answer my
time.
question. So P2 only requires that I be able to give an example of co-ownership that doesn't have a contradiction. If I'm able to do that, then P2 is true. So I just gave you an example where 7 people, each allowing to use the spear one day of the week, that's their entitlement per their agreement. So that is a case of co-ownership. Is there a contradiction in it?
Right. So, given the so if you think it's just, oh well, I can come up with one scenario, we don't have this contradiction, then your argument does not actually establish the point of contention, the proposition, because the proposition is asking about whether the concept of co-ownership, whether that entails a logical contradiction. So, it is possible, potentially. Let's see if it's possible. Can you have a co-ownership arrangement? What would that look like? So I'm asking. You said that they might have a clause put in for if A and B disagree over whether the spearfishing happens. What if they don't have those clauses, or do you think that they have to for any co-ownership arrangement? Do you think that they would have to beforehand make such a clause for every possible conflict that could ever happen?
So I'll point out again that you rejected P2, and P2 only says that it's possible to have a hypothetical case of co-ownership without contradiction. I'm giving you an example, a hypothetical example of co-ownership without contradiction. I've asked you multiple times what the contradiction would be there,
Right.
and rather
So
than answer,
this is what I'm trying to get at, though.
I'm still talking. I'm still wait. I'm still talking. I'm still talking. So instead of answering and giving me the contradiction, you're kind of pivoting to, well, that's not the prompt, that's not the proposition. It's like, well, yeah, but it's the premise of my argument that results in the conclusion being true, my position being true. I give you a syllogism for it.
Right. So this is what I'm
So
trying to get
do
at.
you accept P2 now?
Hold on.
Well, no,
Hold
do you
on.
accept
Jesus
P2?
Christ!
Because
Shut
I
up
gave
for
you
a second.
hypothetical that shows it.
This
I
is
don't have to shut up.
this
buddy.
is what
This
I'm
is not
trying
your
to get
show.
to.
I gave you an argument.
This is
You rejected P2.
this is
Are
what
you
I'm
now
trying
accepting
to
P2?
get to. Let me finish. Is that I think there is
As you
still.
interrupt me,
Shut
means
up.
you tell me to let you finish.
This
Okay.
is
I don't
this.
have to
There
shut up, buddy.
is
If you're
a
gonna interrupt
contradiction.
me, I'm
Guys,
gonna
I don't want to
interrupt
have
you.
to.
Okay.
Let's just add a little structure here. Let's start with Zulu. Please go ahead, Zulu.
Yes. So I think in this hypothetical scenario, whatever hypothetical scenario you have of co-ownership, even the one where they have this clause, I think there still is a contradiction. And that's what I'm trying to get to. Do they have such clauses for everything? I'm just trying to map out what this looks like, because I have a further... maybe he does come up with that there's clauses for everything. Okay, then that's still going to be... I think that's impossible to have clauses for everything. And furthermore, I have a further objection to clauses as such in this way of building up property rights. That's what I'm trying to say here. So I think there still is a contradiction.
Okay. So, do you agree that I gave you a hypothetical where there wasn't a contradiction, or do you
No.
think that there was a contradiction in the case of 7 people using a stick on 7 different days? Was there a contradiction there?
So in that hypothetical, that is not a co-ownership hypothetical. That is person A trades to person B, trades to
not?
person C, trades to person D, right? And so on and so forth. That is not co-ownership. That is a contract
No.
of individual ownership on each of the individual days.
No, this is why would this not be co-ownership? I never said anything about trading. All 7 people own the
No, no,
sphere.
hold on.
Any one of them could sell their
You
right. Well, no,
let's
you
just
hold
let's
on.
just go through it.
Any one of them can sell.
Just let
Wait,
Lego
one
finish
second.
really quickly. Sorry.
Any one of them can sell their right to the stick, their entitlement. Uh, any one of them could preclude a non-owner from using the stick on their day of the week. They could even let a different owner or non-owner use the stick on a day of the week that they're entitled to the spear. So there's no reason that this is trading and not co-ownership. This is a case of 7 people owning a stick without contradiction. So P2 is true.
Yeah, so let's just go through the scenarios. You laid it out that John is entitled, let's just say person 1 is entitled on day 1, person 2 is entitled on day 2, person 3 and so on, up until person N is entitled on day N. Well, let's look at our definition of ownership again. Ownership is the state of possessing an entitlement to control how something is put to use. Person 1 owns it on day 1. He doesn't have the entitlement on day 2, so he doesn't own it on day 2. Person 2 owns it on day 2, and so on and so forth. What you have is a contract set up where it just goes around in a circle, keeps getting traded back and forth between them.
No, we already
What do you disagree?
established even prior to the debate, so maybe moderator does need to give his disclosure that we thought may not be necessary, that the definition, this was overtly expressed prior to the debate, that this definition does not imply that you can't have co-ownership, which is now what you're trying to
No.
lean on.
What I said
You're
is
trying to say,
based
well,
on
no,
this
no, it says
definition,
here.
your scenario was that it gets
Yeah,
traded.
I'll go in and weigh in on this. So of course, we're not ahead of time. So I guess everyone doesn't know this. So I'll disclose this. We agreed ahead of time that the definition of ownership that was agreed upon, you guys can see it on the live stream. Am I streaming, guys? Yeah, I am streaming. You guys can see it here in the box on the left that the definition does not explicitly state one way or the other whether or not Zulu or Lego are correct. So this definition that was agreed to by both of the participants does not explicitly say that co-ownership is or isn't exclusive to one person. But the entire debate doesn't make any sense unless what we're talking about is what are the implications of this definition. So we agreed not to argue. So nobody just in the case of this argument, neither participant is permitted to argue that the definition itself implies that single or multiple person is a valid form of ownership. But the whole debate doesn't make any sense unless what we are talking about is what are the implications of this definition. And I'm keeping track of everything here to make sure that what we're discussing is not the definition itself, and what we are discussing are the implications. And as far as I can tell right now, we are still solely discussing the implications of the definition and not the definition itself. But
Yeah.
if you think that somebody is discussing the definition, please just say, moderator, they're only discussing the definition and not the implications, and here's why. And then we can have a ruling on that.
Yeah, so I want to be
Otherwise,
clear on
Well,
what...
that's what.
I
Well,
want to be...
would,
Hold
I
on,
would
hold
like a
on.
ruling on it then,
Can I
because
just explain what I was
clearly
doing?
saying that, oh no, it
Can I
says
explain
in
what
the
I was doing to you?
definition that
Like, you're
whoever has
you're
control
embarrassing
is
yourself
the
right now. Do you
owner.
understand that?
He's saying that
Can I explain
because
to you what I
only
was
one
doing?
person on that day has control, they are therefore the only owner.
Christ.
He's
right.
appealing to
So
the fact that the language in the definition, which I pointed out before we started the debate, that the language indicates that it's an individual, but that it's not implied that only that individual could have ownership, which was agreed to prior to the debate. That is not implied. So
And
Well,
I want to
an
also be clear. I never
exception.
agreed to that the definition can't imply anything about whether I'm right or you're right.
Well,
All right. And you spent a
you should have
long
raised the
time
objection before
figuring
the
out a
debate
definition you'd be
then.
fine
So,
with, and we all agreed to this definition. And if it still doesn't fit your
yeah,
standards,
we agreed with
then
it,
come up with a new one.
the disclaimer that you cannot use the individual language, the fact that it's expressed as if it's an individual, you cannot use that language as a
I
crutch
didn't.
to then assert that
So
tautologically
so
ownership is only
now can I
single
finally explain what I was
individual. Yes, we
all
doing?
right,
did
gentlemen,
discuss this.
just
So
one moment. All right, so just one moment. I want to clarify something. I think Zulu and Lego will both appreciate this clarification. It is not the case that Zulu agreed to that ruling ahead of time. It is the case that I agreed as the moderator that I would rule against it, so that if it was the case that an argument, so Zulu is not consenting to that. Zulu never acceded to that. I said as the moderator, because we went through a lengthy process of determining what would be the proper definitions. Lego was ultimately the progenitor of that definition and gave the final approval. Um,
I wasn't the progenitor. I gave approval.
well, you were the one who.
Under I gave approval with the understanding that you overtly agreed to that it does not imply individual ownership.
Yep, that's
So
correct.
for right,
That's correct.
yeah, I'm not the
So,
progenitor of the definition.
well, what I meant to communicate there was that you had a role. You had a very involved role in coming up with the definition through my own criteria of clarity. But I'm not trying to attribute either. So Lego proved it. Zulu didn't. But Lego's referring to there is that in this debate, I agreed that if any argument was made based on the definition, that I would rule against it immediately. So on the screen right now, as far as I can tell, Zulu, and please tell me if I'm mischaracterizing your argument here. I am following Zulu's argument as fast as I can. Obviously, it's difficult to transcribe at real time, but I am seeing that an argument is being made from the implications of the definition. I don't see any appeal to the definition. You say is that everything that is an implication is also necessarily um, an appeal to the definition itself, then that would be that would invalidate both sides because then that would if that's the criteria, then the definition would necessarily imply that Lego's correct because we wouldn't be able to analyze any implications. So as far as I can
Okay,
see,
so
this is an
well,
argument that's based on implication. It's not appealing
I
to the
want clarity
definition.
then. I
Like,
want
Yeah.
clarity. So you're saying then that the definition, the meaning of the definition that we're using for this debate is that whoever is in immediate control and has an entitlement to that control is the owner.
okay, can I
That there cannot be
can
someone
I finally
else
get to
that's not
explaining
in
what I was trying to
control.
explain to you like 12 minutes ago?
No, I want him to explain because the definition is now being used
The
in
definition's pretty
exactly the
crystal,
way
man.
that I objected to. Yeah, it is crystal clear, and I objected to this obvious outcome of you just appealing to the
Can I,
language of the
hold on, because you're saying
definition
now I'm just
and
appealing to the definition,
its
and
subtle
you aren't letting
nod
me
to
finish and
individual
explain what I was doing.
ownership. Well, you won't even tell me if you still object to P2.
Holy
Is
shit,
that what we're
bro!
talking about right now? P2?
Holy shit!
Yeah, holy shit, bro. Yeah, holy shit, bro.
20 minutes ago, I was saying
Yeah,
yes, I'm disagreeing
are
with,
you
with
still
P2,
objecting to P2?
and
Okay.
here's
So
why.
okay.
And then you came up with this
Go
scenario
ahead.
of it trading between individual people, each person owning on a different day of the
I
week.
didn't say
And then
trading between
you went into a
individual
whole
people. I
tirade
said
about
they
how I'm
all own
violating
it.
the rules of the
I
debate.
said they
Like, this
all
is
own it.
insanity.
Yes.
Can I finish
I never said
and
that they were
explain to
trading.
you
Yeah, go ahead.
why? Okay, the reason why each individual person, where it goes, okay, A is entitled on day A, B is entitled on day B, so on and so forth, that you are not describing there co-ownership. What is co about this ownership? There's nothing co about this ownership, because on day one, it's person one who has the entitlement to use it, which we define as ownership. Okay, so we know that person one owns it, but person two, he's not entitled to do anything with it, because based on the way you described the scenario, not based on the definition, based on the way you described your hypothetical, person two is only entitled to it on day two, not on day one. You don't get to do shit with it on day one. So how is this a co-ownership situation? It's not. Co-ownership would
Yeah, I
be
would say that it
A
is
and
still
B,
the case.
both are entitled to it on whatever time, right? Which then
Yeah,
leads
so we
into
can
my
both say,
contradiction.
we can well no, there's no contradiction there actually, but
Christ.
I can easily give a different hypothetical of there being a pool where all 7 of these people are allowed to use the pool on all 7 days. And then they can have agreements such as or clauses in their ownership agreement that say that you're not allowed to preclude other owners from use or substantially impede on their access to the pool. They can have clauses that result in mediation if there's a violation or a disagreement. So
And do they have clauses for every
we can
possible
easily have a
conflict?
hypothetical. Yeah, I think if you have a clause that covers
They've got
mediation for
clauses for every
disagreements that are
possible conflict, do
unforeseen,
they?
then yeah, you. I literally just answered that, and then you just asked the same
Well,
question.
because I
So,
think it's
yeah,
ludicrous.
in the case of the pool, in the case of the pool, we do have multiple owners having an entitlement to use at the same time. So therefore, we have co-ownership, right? That was your
But I want
that was
to
your objection
know,
with the spear right? They're
um,
not using it at the same time.
have you ever encountered a contract where it's infinity pages long, and it's got a clause for every possible thing that could ever happen?
What is the contradiction with having multiple people have entitlement to a pool at the same time?
Well, that doesn't sound like an answer.
Well, we're talking about P2. You say that it's not possible to have
Why
an
do you keep
agreement where
running
there's no
back to P2
contradiction.
the second I
I'm
find an
giving
issue
you
with you?
because that's the part you reject.
Right,
Obviously, I'm going to
and
go back to the thing you're
do you
rejecting
not
in
know
my
how
argument.
discussion works? We have to build up from
Do you not
that
know how
to see why it's a
arguments work? You
problem.
rejected
Okay, I can
P2.
run you down the flow
You
if you want.
rejected
I can
P2.
run you through the fucking flow.
I don't need a
Right?
flow.
We start with
Tell me the contradiction in
start
multiple people
with
having
Jesus
entitlement
fucking
to a
Christ,
pool at
shut
the
up
same
for
time.
3 seconds.
Gentlemen, I just want to say, if I have to mute anybody during this, I want you to know that it's actually not punitive. It's only going to be done so I can regain the conversation and get it right back on track. So just be aware that if we keep talking over each other, I'm going to do that just for the sake of keeping the conversation flowing.
Okay, so
Zulu, do you want to just take it from there?
yes. I suppose now I've got to explain how conversations work. So we started with I'm objecting to premise 2, right? I'm objecting to premise 2 because I think it leads to contradiction. And you said, well, no, actually, you can have a situation of co-ownership where there isn't any of these contradictions. Okay, and we go down one path, and now we're back to that, and then you go down this new path of it's a pool. The reason why you can have a hypothetical case of co-ownership without a contradiction is because of this pool thing that goes on. Okay, and then I'm explaining to you why the pool is still erroneous, and I'm asking you about the pool situation. You said in the pool situation they have a clause for every possible conflict, and I'm asking, how does that happen in a contract? Is this contract infinity pages long to have infinity clauses?
No, it doesn't need to be. They can just have a clause. They can have a long agreement, and then they could ultimately have a clause that says that for any unforeseen disagreements or violations, it'll go to mediation, and then mediation will ultimately make a determination, even if it's not overtly expressed in any individual clause what the outcome should be. So we can easily address things that aren't explicitly addressed by an individual clause. So then we go back, we have 7 people with the entitlement to the pool. We have a contract or an agreement that basically, as far as I can tell, addresses your concerns as far as the spear not being ownership entitlement. In the case of the pool, they do all have entitlement and they can all use the pool at the same time. So we've defeated that objection to P2. So what is the contradiction in the new hypothetical?
Okay, so my argument against this is that I think it's a stolen concept fallacy. So I want you to elaborate. Could you have a co-ownership situation? Okay, we'll just stick with this right now. This is a co-ownership situation where the property right is coming out of a contract, right? We can all agree that that's what's happening. It's got all these clauses and these mediators and everything. But contracts are contracts about property. You don't get the concept of contract until you have the concept property. So the concept of property is more fundamental. Therefore, it doesn't come from contracts. You don't have property coming from contracts. So if the way you get to group property is by having it just declared by contractual fiat, then it's invalid because it steals the concept of property.
No, we're talking about ownership here. We have a definition of ownership that only requires
ownership. Then ownership, like, is it a fucking synonym?
Yeah,
Jesus.
We have our concept of ownership here. So we're working within that definition. And in the case of the pool hypothetical I gave you, it meets that definition of ownership. And we have multiple people meeting this definition of ownership. So we have multiple owners. So P2 is satisfied. P2 is true. The conclusion follows. The conclusion is my proposition.
No, it doesn't follow because you're committing a conceptual fallacy.
What's the contradiction in the hypothetical I gave
Fucking
you?
Christ. Do you want to address the stolen concept fallacy here, or are you just going to ignore it? Do you just hope I'll forget about it?
All I have to do
All right, let's
All
see
I
if I
have to
can get things
do.
back on track here. Lego, it seems to me like you've outlined a situation that you're satisfied with. Shows co-ownership without contradiction. That's the pool example. Not that they own a pool, but it's a pool of owners,
No,
and
no, no.
they're
They own
they're
a pool.
shared. Oh, they own a physical pool. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so they do physically own a pool, and that ownership over the pool is governed or described by some sort of contract between all of them, which contains all of the clauses. And like you said, you don't need an infinite amount of explicitly stated clauses. It can have a sort of like for any unforeseen conflicts kind of thing. But it's all described within this contract. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sounds fair.
Okay,
Which I
so
would say, well, just to add one little bit to that, which I would say satisfies P2 of my argument.
sure. So it seems to me that to satisfy P2, like what Zulu's saying here is that you're using the word or the idea of a contract to
It doesn't have to be a
justify.
contract. Well, we won't say contract then. We'll just say ownership agreement, co-ownership
That's
agreement.
just another word for
Okay,
contract, bro.
Zulu, can I substitute? Yeah, can I just
You're the one
substitute the
saying it
word?
doesn't qualify.
Can I substitute, Zulu, with your permission, the word ownership agreement for contract going forward?
Okay, well, hold on. This is gonna. I just wanted to make clear here. That's gonna make it a whole lot wordier, and it still doesn't escape the fact that it's a stolen concept. Because I'm just going to translate in my
It's
head
not a stolen
contract to
concept.
ownership agreement, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Every time.
I'm not going to impose that on you. I'm just saying I'm going to say that
Okay,
um
right.
and with understanding. I don't want to imply any sort of um obligation on your part. But so there's an ownership agreement. So you're just saying that Lego, ownership this co-ownership circumstance is described by and defined by an ownership agreement between all of those participants, right?
Yeah.
And Zulu is saying like this is a logically appropriate next because we've got P2, one objection, one counter argument, second objection, second counter argument. So this is the logical. So now what we're saying is, well, ownership agreements themselves are committing a fallacy because you can't. Well, maybe I'll let Zulu. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I feel like you'll do a better example. But
Yeah, sure.
it's something like this, right, Zulu?
So,
An ownership agreement can't come before a property because it is relying on the concept of property to make sense.
yeah, so basically he's doing like the contract theory of property here, where it's, well, we just agree that we'll use property in this way, and then that's what the property rights are. I think that steals the concept of contract, because contracts are contracts about property. You can't have contract be the primordial thing from which you get property. It's a fallacy.
All my argument relies on is it being possible that we satisfy the definition of ownership with multiple people at the same time.
But you can't do that with a
example I
fallacy.
gave does. So,
What you're doing,
well, I'm still talking. So
you're
I'm
committing a
still talking.
fallacy.
So in the case of the pool hypothetical, it does satisfy the definition of ownership. I don't have to appeal to contracts or property theory. I don't have to
But you
appeal to any
did.
of that. I only have to satisfy the definition of ownership and multiple people satisfying it at the same time, which the pool example does.
But the only way you were able to do that was by committing this fallacy. So it's got to be out. It's got to be dropped from the
Fallacy. You're
flow.
just claiming a
It can't be
fallacy. It's not
considered.
one. There's nothing I'm saying that's fallacious. You can have multiple.
There is.
people
You're stealing the
coming to an
concept
agreement that
of contract.
satisfies- I'm not even talking about contracts. I'm just talking about multiple
Yeah.
people coming to an agreement where
What do you
more
think a
than one
contract
person
is?
satisfies the definition of ownership. Okay,
Okay,
so you're the one
let-
calling it a stolen concept. You're the one who's saying it's not a contract. But then whenever I call it something else,
No,
you
no,
go,
no.
"Oh,
I'm
that's
saying it is a
contract." You're the one
contract, and that you're stealing that concept, and that
Okay, then stop
contract
saying
can't
it's a
come
stolen
before
concept.
property.
No, you don't get to call it. You don't get to demand that it's called a.
Really quickly muting, not punitive. I'm just trying to get control here. What I want to do, and I think this is going to be helpful for Lego. Zulu, I'm going to ask you to really quickly work with me over just the next 60 seconds. I want you to describe, and I'm going to visualize as you do this, I want you to make it clear to everybody what is happening. So I understand the stolen concept fallacy as you described it. You're going to tell me what you think the argument that Lego's making and where the exact inferences that's happening, where the inference isn't appropriate. Does that okay? So let's go with that. So from straight from step one, Zulu, I've got you muted there. I'm gonna mute you as well, Lego, just so I'm back in control of the conversation.
Yeah,
So
that's fine.
let's really quickly, Zulu, just from step one here, because as you can see in the descriptions here, I've got the points and there's the inferences. So what I want to find is where the inference breaks down. So let's just do it so everyone can benefit from this from step one.
So I'm describing why I think Lego is committing the stolen concept fallacy.
Right.
Okay, so
So I want you to not just don't describe the stolen concept
yeah.
fallacy as a
Like I'm going to
fallacy.
go back to
Let's
like
just I
P2
want
and
you
build
to
up.
tell me what
Yeah. Okay, so his premise
and
two.
Lego, I know that he's probably gonna say something that you disagree with about your argument. We'll let him finish, and then you can come in and you can attack the part that you think he gets wrong, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's go, Zulu.
Okay, so his premise two was that it is possible to have a hypothetical case of co-ownership without contradiction. And down this line of the flow in particular, it was that, well, we could have some hypothetical scenario where there's a bunch of people owning a pool, and they just come to an agreement that they're going to own a pool, and they've got all these clauses put up that what they're going to do in specific situations, and the catch-all clause is going to be we'll go to arbitration with whatever arbiter, right? Okay, so what I think this is doing, what I think the error with this is that it is the people just get together and they all just say, hey, let's just all agree that we'll all own this by this thing called a contract. Now, that is stealing the concept of contract, because contracts about property. We need to first have our property theory before we can know whether this is even a valid thing. And his property theory is attempting to be based upon the concept of contract. That's a stolen concept.
Okay, so property theory is a necessary prerequisite for what?
For a contract theory.
Because contracts are about property.
Yeah.
So and just to make this clear, we can say an ownership agreement theory as well, right? Like so that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about here. So Zulu's contending, if I'm understanding correctly, that you cannot put forward a theory of contracts without first having a theory of property in place. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
maybe
I
you
just
can
want
jump in
to
there,
be
like,
clear,
with
like the upside of
oh,
this.
sorry, you keep going.
Yeah. So like the upside of this would be that he would have to have some sort of primordial case of co-ownership, whatever that would end up being, where it's not, well, we'll just have co-ownership because we all came together and agreed on it. It would have to be like somehow in nature, how do we get here from first principles? Like we can't just appeal to contract.
Okay, I think I'm following along, but rather than making everyone sit through my contemplative silence, Lego, you can jump back in now if you'd like to give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would just point out that I'm perfectly fine with leaving out Zulu's concept of contracts. I don't need to appeal to his concept of contracts and then deny it, or his theory of property and then deny it. All I actually need to do is give a hypothetical that satisfies the agreed upon definition of ownership, which we have here on the screen. So long as they have this entitlement, they qualify as an owner. Well, I'm giving a hypothetical that has people who have come to an agreement, regardless of whether we call it a contract. I'm not appealing to his concept of contract. I'm just giving a hypothetical which satisfies P2, where multiple people have come to an agreement that gives them the entitlement that qualifies as ownership. So you can't call it a stolen concept fallacy because I'm not appealing to his concept. I actually probably reject his concept. outright. I'm not appealing to it at all. Now, maybe there's some similarities, but it's neither here nor there. The only thing I need to do for P2 to be satisfied is give a hypothetical where multiple people have satisfied our definition of ownership, and that has been done.
Yeah, so I'm not worried whether you call it a contract or whether you're using my concept of contract or whatever. I'm worried that you still are using the concept of a contract, but that is the root of your property theory. You're trying to derive property from contract. I don't care what you call it.
No, I'm just pointing out that the people all satisfy our definition of ownership. We have multiple people satisfying that definition through agreement. Therefore, we have a co-ownership agreement that satisfies the definition.
But
We
the
have
only
multiple
way you were able to
owners
do
for
that was by
P2 to
committing
satisfy
a
it.
conceptual fallacy.
No, I didn't commit the fallacy. You're
Yes,
just
you did.
asserting that because you have no way to, I guess, address
I'm
my
not just
argument.
asserting it. You haven't even
No, I
begun to
didn't.
address
So
the fact that this is a
you
stolen
are.
concept.
It's not a stolen concept.
Why not?
Let me see if I can. I want to try to see if I've been able to. I want to see
I've
if
already
I
pointed
can.
out why not. I'm
Zulu,
not
is it
appealing to
fair
your
to say?
concept and then rejecting it. So it's not a stolen concept.
So this debate is fundamentally concerning the nature of ownership and property itself. And it sounds like Zulu's saying it, therefore, we cannot determine anything about the nature of ownership or property by appealing to some other concept which itself assumes something about the nature of ownership or property. Is that a succinct way of saying what fallacy you're pointing out here, Zulu?
Yeah, that would be like the general case of it. And I think, in particular here, he is his shining light hypothetical, which is supposed to be the one which can satisfy our definition. That hypothetical is built on. Now, I'm not concerned about him plagiarizing my understanding of what contracts are, whatever. Right? I'm not concerned about any of that. Right? I'm concerned about the fact that it's all about, oh yes, let's just come together and agree that we'll all own this pool. That's the contract theory property. It isn't, oh well, they got out there and they homesteaded it and they did these specific things. It's nothing like that. It's nothing of the sort. It's not appealing to the nature of things. It's not even appealing to, like, the king said so or something, which would be slightly, more acceptable. This is just saying, well, we all just agreed. We all just came together and we all just agreed. That is the contract theory of property. That's what it is. And that is a stolen concept fallacy because contracts are contracts about property.
I'm just going to point out that it's actually Zulu contradicting himself because he's demanding that we consider this a contract, but at the same time he wants to reject that it's a legitimate contract or a valid contract.
I'm rejecting that it's a stolen concept. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
call it what you fucking want. Call it gloop. It doesn't matter.
I'm talking actually. I'm actually still talking. So you're the one contradicting yourself when you continue to insist that this is a contract, but that it's not a contract. I'm not contradicting myself. I'm not even calling it a contract at this point, and I'm not appealing to your concept of contract. So if you want to insist that it's a contract, that's fine. You can do that, but you can't then also call it a stolen concept fallacy whenever you're the one who's insisting that
what do you want to call
within
it?
the set
Ownership agreement?
concept.
Okay, well you're stealing you're stealing the concept of ownership agreement.
Your concept. I'm not.
That's what you're doing here.
Concept. Okay. No.
None of your words. Sorcery is going to get you out of this.
Which I'm not doing. So,
all right, gentlemen, I'm going to move
this
this along just because we've already discussed this. I don't think we're going to make any headway here. So I want to ask Zulu a question, and Lego, feel free to just jump in as soon as he's finished with answering the question. The question is it the case that the concept of an ownership agreement, and you're welcome to interpret that as the word contract. Is it the case that the concept of an ownership agreement inappropriately assumes something about the nature of property or ownership? And if you're going to give the affirmative answer, please tell me what that assumption is.
Okay, so inappropriately within, like, what context? Just like in general, does the concept of a contract inappropriately do anything? Or like specifically the way he's doing it?
if I understand correctly, you're saying it's inappropriate on the basis that it's some sort of there's like the stolen concept fallacy, as I understand it so far, means that you're kind of putting the cart before the horse. So you would say,
Yeah.
um, there's some way that so when he's giving his pool example, he is including in that explanation of how the pool example works some idea of an ownership agreement, and by
Mhm.
including that in his answer, he's doing something wrong. And so my question, and it seems to be based on the stolen concept fallacy as you described it, what he's doing wrong is he's assuming something about this more primordial concept, which is either property or nature, or sorry, either property or ownership. So my question is, what exactly is it that he's assuming by including an ownership agreement, um, that is rendering what he's saying invalid?
Okay, so sort
I
of
have it here. I have it here up on the screen. I'm hoping that makes it clear.
yeah, so sort of what that would entail for the concept of property when you invert contract and property, when you have contract first and property second, is that property is just whatever the hell you want. It can just be whatever. It's just pure fiat. It doesn't have any actual relationship to any problem that we face. It's no longer tied to scarcity. This is his other big hoo ha over that I was against IP.
Sure. Do you think it's fair for me to say in that case that if somebody's not concerned with the definition being by fiat, that that's not necessarily a problem yet?
Well, I mean, but then the whole debate's just nothing. It just evaporates. Like, who cares? We can just say whatever we want. We can just say, well, I own it, and no, I own it, and then, like, what are we even doing? Like, if we're not even appealing to the nature of
Is
things or
it fair for me
conflicts or
to
anything.
say, and this is me giving Lego an opportunity to jump back in here, but my question for you, Lego, is am I adequately characterizing your position as property is by fiat and that's not a problem, because the reason that property being fiat isn't a problem is because you're capable of providing examples of ownership that don't involve contradictions?
No, my point is that our concept of ownership that we're working with is just that someone possesses this entitlement of control that qualifies as ownership. I'm giving a hypothetical where multiple people have an entitlement of control, therefore multiple people have ownership, which satisfies P2 of my argument. I don't need to go into property theory or anything. All that matters is whether or not we have multiple people with an entitlement of control, which they do. So we have co-ownership. If it satisfies the definition of ownership, it is ownership.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'll try to move, since we're getting to a little bit of a lull here. I'll try to move things on, if I may. Prompt here. So how about this, Lego? I'd like to know about. I would like to run by a hypothetical with you myself and see what your answer is to this hypothetical. So my hypothetical is this: um, let's say I have $1,000 in the bank, but I want to act as if um, I have $1 million in the bank. And so if I said to my friends, like, I'm going to buy everybody here McDonald's, there's no actual problem entailed by this sort of non-truth, right? But there's a breaking point in which, like, I can buy all my friends McDonald's unless I had like 1,000 friends. But I can buy all my friends McDonald's, but I can't go and I can't buy a Porsche. I can't buy a sports car. So there's a breaking point where that that breaking point represents the meaning. So that breaking point is what makes it the difference between whether I own $1,000 or whether I own $1 million. Now I'm going to relate that to the theory of ownership by asking this question. So my ability to buy McDonald's for my friends doesn't demonstrate that I do or don't have $1 million. Just like hypothetically, if you had a couple of different people who were um, saying they owned this, let's go back to the Friday Crusoe example here, just to keep it simple. Let's say you've got two people who are both claiming to own a stick. As long as it's the case that they're both, you know, they're not having exclusive desires for that stick, there's no breakdown. when we're talking about ownership, though, it seems to be the case that we're talking about something that resolves conflict. And I would want to know, some people are going to put forward the idea that conflict is the point where ownership breaks down and its invalidity is exposed, just like the way that my inability to buy a sports car is an example of how claiming to have $1 million when I only have 1,000 breaks down. So my question is, the criticism I think is clear there, that resolving conflicts represents some sort of concrete breaking point for a concept of co-ownership. Why do you think that that's not the case?
Why do I think what's not the case?
So do you agree with the hypothetical that I've given, or do you the point that the
Maybe we should
hypothetical
just
is
ask your
attempting to make?
question. What is the question? You said a lot there, but you basically just ended with, "Do you agree?" And honestly, I feel like your question is kind of missing the point. It is co-ownership if multiple people have this or possess this entitlement. The fact that you can say you have $1 million when you only have 1,000 doesn't seem particularly relevant. The fact that you can't buy a Porsche with $1,000 doesn't seem relevant. I'm not sure what exactly it is you're even trying to get to here.
Sure, yeah. Well, I apologize if there's any lack of clarity in that question. So what I'm saying is that there are certain functional components of ownership and property rights, and I'm not trying to. I want to be
I
clear.
just
I'm
wanna
not
know what the
trying to join
question
in.
is.
Yeah,
I
sure. I'm
heard
just
your
trying to.
whole hypothetical. What is your question like explicitly?
Yep, I'm getting there. Thank you. I do understand you've asked me to clarify. I'm just clarifying for everybody
I don't want
here.
you to clarify, like, the hypothetical, though. I
Okay,
just want you
Jesus,
to
let me
I'm gonna
finish.
mute
explicitly.
you so that I can get. I'm gonna mute you so I can finish. I'm just clarifying for everybody in the audience really quickly here. I'm only trying to prompt the participants here because we had a little lull. I'm not trying to join into the conversation. The question and Lego, if you really, if after this explanation you still don't answer it, I'll see if Lego gets it, and if not, then I'll take the L on being not very clear. So what my question is I'm putting forward the suggestion that the inability to resolve conflicts is a breaking point for concepts of co-ownership, which means that it might be the case that co-ownership is invalid as a concept, even if there are some cases where it doesn't produce issues to use the concept of co-ownership. So if that's the case, I've given an example where co-ownership is experiencing a potential breaking point, which is the resolution of conflict, or specifically when the two people who both have the entitlement want to do things that are exclusive with each other, right? Now, I want to clarify that this is if you say something back to me like, well, they have an agreement or a clause, then you're exiting the hypothetical that I'm asking you because I'm setting up a hypothetical where there's a conflict and an ability. The question I'm asking is, we're discussing, we're exploring a potential breaking point, which is the inability to resolve conflict. Why do you think that hypothetical fails to show a worthwhile problem with co-ownership? And then now that I've made myself clear, Zulu, if you wish, when he responds, you can take it from there. I'm not going to I don't want to do a back and forth.
Yeah, I'm not saying that co-ownership agreements wouldn't address conflict or resolve conflict. I'm not suggesting that at all. If anything, the agreements would resolve conflict, and that's a huge part of what makes them ownership agreements between these different owners. So, does that answer your question, or am I missing the question?
Yeah, no, I think you got it. Yeah, that's a huge part of what makes them ownership agreements. Right. So let's say it's Crusoe and Friday on the island. Crusoe wants to use a stick to spearfish. Friday doesn't want this to happen. We say they both own it. They're in a conflict. They're getting to blows over this, right? Crusoe is about to launch his nuclear missile to the other side of the island to kill Friday and all the Friday worshippers who want to use the stick who don't want to use the stick to spearfish, right? What should happen here? We've got a conflict. They're not going to agree over it, right? We're in primordial level. All they've done so far is just said, hey, Friday, let's both own the stick. Friday's like, yeah, sure, Crusoe, let's do that. Which isn't even properly primordial, by the way. I don't even know what that would mean. So this is just the most basic form of an agreed upon ownership, co-ownership agreement. What the fuck do they do?
Yeah, it seems like you're just trying to give an example where someone is either violating the agreement. I
You could almost
imagine
call it a
that
breaking
some part of the
point.
agreement. Yeah, but you can have breaking points of this sort with any sort of agreement. It doesn't matter.
No,
The fact of the matter
no,
is
you
that we can have
can't.
co-ownership. The fact of the matter is that
No,
the
you
fact that
only
we
get it
of
with
the matter is
invalid
that we can
when
have.
you commit all
I'm
these
still
conceptual
talking, Max.
fallacies.
I'm still
That's when you
talking.
get
I'm still
these
talking. I'm
breaking
actually still
points.
talking.
Sorry,
I'm
Zulu,
actually still talking.
just let
So
Lego finish. Sorry.
yeah, the point that I'm making is that we can have an agreement that does address conflict, that does give us clear winners in the conflict, and does give multiple people this entitlement that we've defined as ownership. So the fact that you could have a situation where someone violates an agreement, or that you could have a situation where someone shoots a nuke at somebody, that doesn't show any sort of inherent contradiction with co-ownership. Even if you gave a hypothetical where the agreement itself did have contradiction, that wouldn't satisfy P2. That wouldn't be enough for us to reject P2. I only need to be able to give a hypothetical where P2 is satisfied. As long as I can do at least one, there is no inherent contradiction to co-ownership, because we can have some cases where it works. So I would take us back to the pool. There, you can have conflict resolution here. You can even have it to where the owners, if someone who's not an owner comes and they say, "Well, I'm getting in the pool," or I'm going to fill the pool up with sand," whatever it is, those owners can say, "No, we're excluding you because we're the owners," and we have a clear resolution to who wins that conflict. Those co-owners win that conflict. And then if there's a disagreement among the co-owners, they can have agreements that address that, or clauses in the agreement that address that. And then for anything unforeseen, they would go to arbitration, as you said. So there's no reason that just because a conflict could happen, we would therefore the concept.
Right, so to be clear, your solution to, well, what if the co-owners don't agree, which was the question posed by the moderator's hypothetical, is, well, they just will agree. It's the equivalent of, well, what if I tried to buy the Porsche after I acted on the concept that I have $1 million? And your response to that would be, you won't buy a Porsche. You won't try and buy the Porsche. Like, this is, you're,
Yeah,
in the moderator's words, you're exiting the hypothetical.
in the case of y'all not agreeing. No, if they don't agree, then they don't have a co-ownership agreement. Yeah, that is the case. That if they don't agree, they don't have a co-ownership agreement. But once they agree to this co-ownership agreement,
Okay,
they can have disagreement that follows that, and they would refer back to the agreement to resolve that conflict. So you still have conflict resolution. It's just that in the case of the co-owners not agreeing
whoa,
up
no,
front,
you don't
even
have
to
conflict
become
resolution
co-owners,
anymore.
you just wouldn't have a co-ownership agreement.
You no
Yeah,
longer
you
have
do,
conflict
actually.
resolution, which you said that they have agreements to resolve conflict. That is a huge part. Conflicts is a huge part of what makes them ownership agreements. That's a quote from you. And your idea of an ownership agreement is that it ceases. It just stops existing the instant a conflict comes along. That's not an agreement to resolve conflicts. That's nothing to do with conflict. Like
No,
it only
the
works when there
co-ownership
isn't
agreement
conflict,
resolves
which
those
just
conflicts.
the concept
Lego,
evaporates.
Resolves those conflicts.
Sorry, Lego. Just let him finish right quick, please. Sorry.
That's fine. I just wanted to finish on like the concept is disappearing when you have this situation. There is no need of having this concept of ownership if the instant you get to a situation, this breaking point where, well, there's a conflict now, is, well, then they don't have an agreement. It's like, yeah, brilliant. And then we no longer have anything.
Yeah, not what I said. Not what I said. I said that if they don't come to an agreement up front, then there won't be co-ownership. There won't be a co-ownership agreement if they don't come to an initial agreement to be co-owners. But once they have a co-ownership agreement, the agreement will clearly stipulate, okay, this is how we resolve conflict. So you still have conflict resolution in the agreement.
I've got
Just because they disagree prior to an agreement doesn't mean that you somehow negate the entire agreement once it's actually occurred.
I've got just a real quick question for you. Let's say they've followed all your rules. They've got a bunch of clauses, and they've said, "Yep, we're going to go to the highest arbiter in the land. Whoever the best arbiter in the world is, we're going to go to them." and then disaster strikes. Everybody but Crusoe and Friday in the whole world is dead. And now they got to figure out what happens with the stick. Does their ownership disappear now that they no longer have any arbiter to possibly go to?
In the case of two people, would they still have? I mean, assuming that their ownership agreement. I'm trying to conceptualize what you're talking about. Okay, so we have a co-ownership agreement that requires that they go to arbitration in the case of disagreement,
Mhm.
and then this is now impossible due to everybody else being dead.
Yep.
Yeah, it would sound like their ownership agreement is dissolved almost necessarily. Like you're just talking about two random people
Okay, so you think at that
being the
point,
last two people on Earth.
like
Yeah, I
let's
don't know what
let's
ownership means in that case.
okay, so let's well, I mean, ownership, it has a huge, that's a huge part of what makes them ownership agreements, referring to conflict avoidance. So they can still have conflict. So that's a huge part of what makes them ownership agreements, as we all know from Lego. The problem with this situation then is that what happens with the property? Does it just the stick still exists? Is it just back into nature? Do they just have like to do a mad dash towards it to see who can homestead it first? Why is it abandoned? Like what is abandonment on
Yeah,
first
so
principles on your view?
yeah, I mean, so this doesn't at all show that a contradiction is inherent to co-ownership. I mean, like this is basically entirely off topic. You're basically just saying that if everybody in the world died but two people, what would ownership mean? And that's not the point I'm making or
I'm
addressing. What
showing
I'm talking
that
about
your
here is that we
concept
can get
cannot apply to
that
every
we. I'm
possible
still talking
situation.
actually. I'm
You
still
cannot avoid
talking actually. I'm
conflicts. You
actually still
Can you
can't.
finish
talking.
there, Zulu?
So I'm actually still talking. Yeah. So all I need to show is that we can have a hypothetical situation where you would have multiple owners without a contradiction. That satisfies P2. The fact that you can posit a hypothetical of everyone in the world dying, that doesn't do anything to address P2 at all. So I would have to kind of pull us back to my argument as the advocate here. Are you still trying to address P2? Because if so, I would say you've kind of wandered. You've lost the thread a little
Well, I
bit.
was riffing. We were riffing there.
Yeah, you're riffing into territory that has nothing
Well,
to do with the debate.
actually,
You're
well,
riffing about
you know,
apocalypse.
if we're going to have the moderator come in and stipulate that we can't have any just the definition includes anything, and I don't have to agree to that, fine, whatever. Then we can also have the moderator come in and bring up a hypothetical scenario for you to address and have us riff on that to fill the dead air.
Yeah,
So I am not
moderator
doing
doesn't bring
anything
up
untoward
apocalypse.
there
You're doing
at
that.
all.
I didn't say you're doing anything untoward. I'm just pulling you back as the advocate. I have an argument here. You rejected P2, and now you're going down a line of dialogue that has nothing to do with P2. So I'm going to pull you back to my argument. Do you have any sort of way of addressing P2? Why it necessarily entails a contradiction?
Well,
Because I've given you a
Yes.
hypothetical that doesn't.
I'm sure that Zulu feels that he has done that. Zulu, unless you are going in a new direction, I'd like to ask another hypothetical really quickly. It's very, very quick.
Sure.
Lego, if Crusoe and Friday say, "Hey," and this is the literal conversation they have. They say, "Hey, let's both own this stick because it could be useful to both of us." And they say, "Okay, sure." Are they now in a legitimate co-ownership arrangement with you, or is there some other criteria that they haven't yet satisfied?
Do they both have some entitlement that satisfies the definition of ownership that we are working with?
That felt like a question, and I was
It
looking
was a
for an
question.
answer.
You're asking me if they're owners, and I'm asking you, well, you
So
didn't really
there,
express in your hypothetical whether or not they both have this entitlement that would be the thing that determines whether they're owners or not. So
okay, so I must have missed something in my hypothetical. I apologize for that. So let's say that these two individuals, I'll even simplify it further. We'll do A and B, okay? And they're on an island where at the beginning of this hypothetical, nobody has an entitlement to anything, and they both pop into existence. With obviously with language and stuff like that. And
okay,
they look around the island and they say, "Hey B, hey A." They have name tags hypothetically. Um,
okay,
and they say, "Okay, well, we're gonna need to survive here. This stick looks like it could be really useful to both of us. So let's both of us own this stick together for our mutual benefit." I feel like I'm being a little clearer there. So is this conversation that they've just had verbatim? sufficient to establish some form of co-ownership, or is there some prerequisite that they still haven't satisfied?
I mean, you're not really giving me any content to the ownership
Jesus.
agreement, so I can't really say whether this is
I gave you
like a
the whole
legitimate case of
conversation.
ownership or not.
So I gave you
Well,
the
I would say
verbatim.
that
So
I
I'm
would say
gonna
no. Then I would say no then, because
great,
there's no content here that I would say qualifies this as ownership. It's just two
per-
people saying we own this, it sounds like.
perfect. Okay, now that's a perfectly coherent answer. So
One
my
might even
question is,
say
what
that is a
I'd
stolen
like to move the
concept.
conversation.
Yeah,
Sure.
you'd be wrong. So
But let's just really quickly, Lego. I want to ask then. Um, I want you to share some insight with me here. This verbatim conversation I've just offered you and the circumstances of the conversation, they didn't satisfy for you that a co-ownership agreement was sufficiently established. So what is missing? What extra steps do they need to do to reach the state where they're in a co-ownership agreement?
we would need content on like their control, the agreements they have on control in the case of co-ownership. I mean, just two people saying we own this. I mean that to me is nothing. Just saying we own this.
Great. Okay. So if that's the case, are we talking about like there's some sort of objective criteria that you're appealing to? And I don't mean objective in the Randian objectivist sense. I just mean that there's some sort of concrete criteria that we can use to say whether or not a co-ownership agreement is it's not a defeater. I'm just asking for sorry, I'm responding to a comment there. This isn't meant to be a defeater, and I'm not participating in the debate as a participant here. I'm trying to prompt the conversation. um, my question is there a concrete step that they can do that you can share with us that will cross the demarcation point between what was not sufficiently a co-ownership agreement? Or is it the case, because what I'm asking here is just for you to give us insight into the nature of co-ownership. I'm not making an argument for or against anything here. So is there concrete criteria that they have to meet that you can share with us? Or are you suggesting, and it could be a third thing too, but are you suggesting that it's going to be up to some sort of subjective interpretation about whether or not any given co-ownership agreement is valid?
I don't even think this is particular to co-ownership. I would say this is just not ownership at all, much less co-ownership. I mean, it's just not ownership for two people to pop into existence and say, we own this. There's no content there that would make me think, okay, this is a substantial claim of ownership in any way. I would say at the very least, ownership would require some socially recognized entitlement to exclude non-owners, or at least some special privilege, such as we've indicated in the definition. There's no special privilege here, so I mean, it fails. I'm trying to stick with the definition that is apparently what we're supposed to be focused on, and what you're positing here does not satisfy that definition. So no, it wouldn't be ownership, just
Like,
based off the stipulations of the debate on what qualifies as ownership.
can I just
I
jump
feel
into
like I wasn't clear. Sure. Yeah, please.
maybe just put a new angle on this? I thought you were being crystal, but apparently, um, like I think what the
No,
moderator
I
is asking
understand it. I'm
for
not saying I don't
is
understand
like,
it. My answer is
what would
I'm giving you
Crusoe
a
and
no
Friday
answer for a
have to
reason.
do?
I'm saying I don't
They're
understand the
they're
question. So
they're on this island. What would they have to do? What steps would they have to take in order to co-own this stick?
they would have to have some sort of special privilege per the definition that we're using for this debate, which it's been insisted, that's the definition. So we have a definition that's not met for ownership
But
that works
how
about
do they
ownership.
get this special privilege?
How you would get a special privilege is irrelevant. Two random people on an island. What special privilege do these two people have? If you can articulate a special privilege they have, then yeah, I would agree that it. But again, that's why I pointed out to moderator when he gives this hypothetical, you're not giving me enough content really to say, yes, this is ownership, because you need to articulate some special privilege these people have gained. That's
So
our
just to be
definition of
clear,
ownership.
I'm not. My question, I must have been unclear, and I apologize about that. So I'm asking you for the purpose of insight for help everyone understand here. Again, this isn't an argument or a defeater. I'm asking you. I didn't suggest that, or the hypothetical I presented does not suggest that they have ownership or not. My question is: here's a hypothetical at face value. What do you think specifically they need to do to get to a valid co-ownership agreement if they're not already. And I'm not making there's no other
Yeah, I can
built-in
answer that.
but great,
Yeah, I
perfect.
can answer that. We would need to be able to articulate some special privilege that they're both entitled to.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means? I just want to make sure that we've got it all laid out.
We would need to be able to articulate in what sense they have a special privilege that differentiates their ownership from a non-owner.
Zulu, I feel like you want to jump in there too. Please, I'm not trying
Sure.
to.
So they need to articulate some sort of special privilege they have that distinguishes them from
Not what I
distinguishes
said.
owner from non-owner.
Not what I said, but okay.
Please, Lego, please just give the definition again. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm not giving a definition. I'm telling you. Asked me why.
Right,
What?
I was
What would it
wanting
be
that's
that
why I
is
was repeating
needed for
it.
this to qualify? Well, yeah. What? And you didn't repeat it. You changed it. So
I was
the
I was
moderator-
repeating it to
we're
try and
trying. I
get you
just
to
wanna get
tell me
it.
what's wrong with it.
Right. So the moderator gave a hypothetical and he asked what
Christ.
would be necessary for this what would need to change about this hypothetical for it to qualify as ownership or co-ownership. And the answer was the moderator would need to articulate something in this hypothetical. He would need to add something to this hypothetical that meets the threshold of a special privilege, an entitlement that these people have. And in the case for it being co-ownership, that they both have. If he does not do so, if that's not articulated in the hypothetical, it doesn't meet the definition of ownership that we're using for the debate. So if you want to articulate that into the hypothetical, then yeah, I would say it is ownership. If
Okay,
you
what
just
if
want to posit,
they
yes, they do have special privilege, I would say yes, that is ownership.
what
If
if
you're
what
not
if
going to say
what,
whether they have a special privilege, well, then I can't say whether they have
what
ownership or not.
okay, what if I think there are other problems with this theory of property, but I will stick with this for now. What if they at the end of the verbatim discussion, Friday's like, oh, wait a minute, but we need to articulate which special privileges we have. And then Crusoe's like, okay, we'll just both get to always use it. Would that be co-ownership?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of through with this whole line here. Are you going to tell me why there's necessarily a contradiction whenever we have co-ownership? I don't care if you're able to come up with hypotheticals where we wouldn't have co-ownership. My argument doesn't rely on all circumstances and all hypotheticals allowing for co-ownership. So even if you can show or not show that this would be or would not be co-ownership, it's irrelevant. You need to. I've given you a hypothetical where we do have ownership satisfied by multiple people. Therefore, we've satisfied P2. So I would need you to tell me. I want to go back to you telling me why P2 has not been satisfied with the pool example. You don't need
Suppose
to give
A
me
through Z
hypothetical.
own a stick, co-own a stick. Everybody in the set A through Z owns the stick.
I gave you a
Suppose A wants to
hypothetical.
use the spearfish
I
and
gave you
B
a
does not want this to
hypothetical.
happen. Either A is entitled to spearfish or he isn't. A owns the stick if and only if A is entitled to spearfish. B owns the stick if and only if A is not entitled to spearfish. A and B own the stick implies that A is entitled to spearfish and A is not entitled to spearfish. Replace the stick with whatever the hell you want. That's a contradiction, my friend.
Cool. I gave you a hypothetical where multiple people do possess the entitlement.
Whoops, that's not addressing
you
my
wanna tell me what the
argument.
contradiction
Oh
is?
no, he's not addressing my
I don't
argument.
need to
Whatever
address
will
your
I
argument.
do?
I'm the
He's trying to
advocate. You have
build off
to
of
address
it.
my
I want
argument. You have
you
to
to address
address my
specifically my argument
You're
and
rejecting
don't
P2.
stray from it a hair.
Yeah, or is it my turn to talk now? So I don't have to address your argument. I'm the advocate in the debate. I gave you an argument. You rejected P2, and you said that it's not possible to come. And the reason you rejected P2 is because it's not possible to come up with a co-ownership agreement that doesn't have contradiction. I've given you a co-ownership agreement that does not have contradiction.
Oh, so
We
now
have
it's fine to
multiple
build on these
owners of the
arguments. So we
pool.
can build on them and go into other areas, can't we?
We have multiple. I'm still talking. We have multiple owners.
I just want to know if it's
of
fine
the
to build
pool.
on them and go
They
into
all
multiple areas, or if I have to
possess
stick
I'm still
strictly to
talking.
P2 and
They
never
all
shred
possess.
even a
I'm
little
still
bit out of
talking,
P2.
actually.
Do I
So
have to
they
stick to it the
actually.
whole
I'm
time?
still talking,
I
actually.
don't give a
I'm
shit.
All
still
right,
talking.
gentlemen. All right, not punitive. Just gonna take control here. I just want to let everyone know that we're over an hour now. So nobody's obligated to continue, and I'm not going to put that on anybody either because I think that would be an inappropriate imposition. But what I do want to do before we go is I want to give both of our speakers the opportunity to get their final statements in. And afterwards, I always let everybody go down to the voice channels, and you guys can continue to speak for as long as you wish, with much less moderation, if that's what you're into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the critic speak first, and I'm going to let the critic summarize what they think the failing was and what they were attempting to show and how they attempted to show it, and why they feel that the argument failed to achieve its purposes. That would be the argument on screen here in green. And then once the critic has had the opportunity to make their case for why they think the argument failed, the advocate's going to get the opportunity to say why they believe that their argument succeeded and how they've overcome the concerns that the critic raised. So I'm going to unmute you, Zulu. Go for it.
Sure. So at the beginning of this debate, Lego gave us his syllogism, and I gave my unanswerable, and I'll elaborate on that in a second, unanswerable deductive argument that co-ownership is impossible. Now, why do I think this is unanswerable? Well, you've seen it in this debate. Every single time that we started building up on some line, we started building out the flow on some point of my argument, my unanswerable argument against him, he will very quickly go, okay, well, let's get back to P2. Let's just get back to P2 real quick. And he does this every single time I start pushing on a pressure point. He runs away, and he runs back. Well, actually, in my syllogism, I said blah, 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 blah. Irrelevant bullshit he will bring up. Every single time. When I'm finally allowed, every time this happens, when I'm allowed to push, what do we find? We find that he bases his entire theory on conceptual fallacies. He steals the concepts all over the board. He relies on just nonsense understanding of property. He doesn't even understand how property comes about in the first place. He doesn't know what it takes for Crusoe and Friday on the desert island to come to own things. He doesn't know or care. He does not give a shit about the concept of property. He's just doing pure and utter word sorcery to try and get one over on me in this debate. And he's been rules lawyering the whole fucking time for that exact same reason. Because he is desperate to avoid this gaping hole in what theory? Not even fucking his theory. He doesn't give a shit about property. What does he give a shit? He didn't care about avoiding conflicts. He didn't care about any of this. His whole property theory, what does it amount to? It amounts to gesturing vaguely at nothing. At not a thing. At just, who cares? We just have property because we have property. And these are the words. I'm going to muddle them about in a certain way, and then I win the debate. No, that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to do philosophy. We're trying to relate our ideas to actual things as they are. Lego cannot do that. He simply cannot.
All right. Thank you for the closing statement. I'm going to let Lego speak. That probably was as close to the line, or probably over the line a little bit, what we like to encourage here in terms of politeness. But I'm going to let Lego have the floor now to make his response, and then we'll take it into the after party. Lego, you're muted.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that when I point to P2, Zulu calls it irrelevant bullshit. The purpose of this debate was for us to debate this argument that I have here. I have an argument that concludes in my proposition being true, and when Zulu wasn't able to address the argument properly, sufficiently, he then starts to call the argument irrelevant bullshit, despite the purpose being to address this argument. He says that I don't have any sort of conflict resolution, despite throughout the debate him pointing to me. He quoted me throughout the debate, talking about how important conflict resolution is to the agreement. I even gave examples of conflict resolution being included in the agreement. So first it's a little odd to say that the argument that we're debating is irrelevant. What happened here is that Zulu, when incapable of addressing the argument, would try to go down these weird wormholes of, well, what if we're in an apocalypse situation where there's no one alive? Well, what's property then? It's like, well, you don't have property then in that case. That's not really relevant. The P2 here the thing that he thinks is so irrelevant, but also the thing that he thought defeated my argument, is that it is possible to have a hypothetical case of co-ownership without contradiction. So yes, when Zulu starts going down these frankly irrelevant hypotheticals that don't show that there is some inherent contradiction to co-ownership, I am going to pull him back to P2. And I'm going to point out again the thing that he was never able to address. P2 only requires, you can obviously have many more, but it only requires that I be able to give one example of a hypothetical case of co-ownership without contradiction. That is all P2 requires. And when I gave one, Zulu almost accepted it as a legitimate case, but he always wanted to pivot to, well, I can give you a case where there is a contradiction. But P2 doesn't require that all cases of co-ownership be valid. It only requires that you be able to give one hypothetical where it's valid. And that would justify P2 being true. He didn't have any objections to P1, and the conclusion follows from P1 and P2. So I've satisfied P2 with the hypothetical that he refused to address of multiple people owning a pool, where our definition of ownership is just that they possess this entitlement. Multiple people possess the entitlement due to their agreement. They're able to resolve conflict. P2 is satisfied. We can reach my conclusion. So he can talk about word sorcery and stolen fallacies or stolen concept fallacies. It's really Zulu who's the one who's wanting to evade the argument, going so far as to call the argument we are debating irrelevant bullshit.
Great. Well, I think that both of the closing statements were uh, pretty. Lego, I really hope you were done. I assumed you were done there. It would look really bad on me if you weren't. But I'm pretty confident you were. Uh, I think both of those were very equivalent in terms of tone, so I'm comfortable with that for this time. I want to thank both of the participants. They were both great sports, and I was really grateful to hear both of what they had to say. We don't have the opportunity to actually have you guys hear the applause from the audience, so let's just assume that it's there. Just a couple of housekeeping things at the end here. Now that the debate's officially done, I'm going to start on editing it. You can find it on the YouTube page, but it's going to be posted so everyone can find it easily in the uploads channel once that's done. I invite everybody to go to the voice chat channel if you want to have your own discussion about this afterwards. All of the rules about courtesy and everything persist into the voice channel. If I'm not there, but somebody's being a bit of an ass, you can just go ahead and call me and I'll come in and take care of it. So thanks again, everybody. I'm going to unmute you guys so you guys have the opportunity to say you're welcome or not if you like to, and we'll head into the after show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. I enjoy this format. I think there is. I think I was going to debate Fabian on this format at some point. I'll have to see if he's still willing to do that. So I might be back in the future.
Great.
And I'll thank you, moderator, and I'll say thank you to Zulu for giving us the time on his Saturday to talk about co-ownership, and it was fun.
Absolutely.
It was fun. Hey, by the way, let me just ask you guys now that I'm not recording anymore. Do either of you pay any attention at all to the what's on the screen, what I'm streaming while you're debating, or do you tend to ignore that and just hope it comes out okay in the final result?
I sometimes look at the.
Unless you bring attention to it.
I will sometimes look at the thing on the screen to see how you're writing the flow, but I pay more attention to my flow because my flow is going to be strategically weighted towards me. But I want to see where your mind's at to see if I'm going to have to jump in and correct something. But I will say what might be potentially more useful. I don't know if this is possible, but if maybe Obsidian Publish can do this, but if like we could go on ourselves and zoom in and scroll apart whatever part of the flow we wanted.
I don't think it's possible at face value, but I'll definitely do my due diligence in seeing if it's possible. What were you saying? There's Lego. Sorry.
You mean earlier? I was just
Yeah,
saying.
just about this.
About this. Oh, I was saying that I don't really look at it too much, just because I don't want to misconstrue what he's saying based off of what you're writing. So I'm kind of more focused on listening to what he's saying than trying to read this and then miss part of the dialogue.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, no, and just to be clear, I don't want the debaters actually to be. I want them to be assisted by it optionally. They can choose to. My only concern with it is not about whether or not you guys use it. I think the audience likes it. My concern is I just want to find a way to make sure that everyone who's participating is comfortable that I'm sufficiently accurate in my characterization of them. If the participants aren't watching during the debate, I get a little bit worried that maybe they'll see something they didn't like too late once the video's already up. Because there would be nothing on purpose about that. I'm just trying to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. But all right, I appreciate the feedback. I'll let you guys go. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it greatly, and I look forward to seeing both of you guys in the future.
Absolutely. I'll see you in a second.
I do want to point out one error you had there, but in
Oh,
your
sure,
thing, now
yeah.
that I look at it, you say here right by your mouse, is the contract infinity pages long? I never said that.
No,
I never
that's
said
red.
yes to that.
That's red. It's Zulu, and your response was no. So you're reading. Sorry, the arrows are going in the opposite direction that you think they are. That's why. So you didn't.
Oh,
You
okay.
didn't. So you said, "Will there be a?" Sorry, Zulu said, "Will there be a clause for every possible conflict?" You
Okay,
said
okay,
yes
yeah.
to that. Gotcha.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure. Yeah, with the arrows, it made it look like it went the other way.
Yeah, I know it is a little counterintuitive that way, but it's just because I find that if I do it the other way, it's a little bit more distracting for me as a process. But maybe I'll
Oh, no,
find a
it's
workaround
fine.
for that.
No, I think now that you pointed out, yeah, you adequately captured it. I was reading it backwards, so.
Perfect. All right. Thanks again, guys. I will see you both next time.
Yep. See ya.
All right.
Alright, yes, I'm gonna go into his VC in a second, but I need to take a piece first. Let me. Here. Just go into the VC right now.
I don't know. It's interesting that there was a lot of running around the proposition, and just the format of the debate is clear because it's kind of set up to where you're funneled into this one.
All right,
Well,
guys.
this place is popping.
You can live stream if you want, as long as you're
Okay.
just disclose it to everybody. I just want to say
I'm gonna
Uh,
live stream.
I'm thankful everyone's here. Just remember, just be polite. Don't make me have to stop what I'm doing and come back in and punish anybody. And I appreciate it.
Yeah,
We
don't
love you. We love you.
Yeah,
make
moderator,
dad.
we actually love
Don't
you.
make dad have to come back.
All right, guys. So
Okay, let's ask questions to the
He's gone.
like the Q&A time.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could do that.
No, not to the
only have-
moderator, to
But let's
the
also
to the
like have like
debaters.
a open discussion kind of.
Oh, let's have one person control the flow of the questions so we can all get.
okay,
you can do that.
I'll do that.
Okay, King Silas, you're in charge.
All right, guys. So who wants to ask a question to whom?
I have a question for Zulu.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the
Wait, Zulu,
difference?
are you open? Sorry, Zulu, you open at answering questions?
Zulu's not here right now. He went to the bathroom.
Oh,
I can
okay,
wait.
I think you're gonna have to wait until he comes back.
No worries. I guess other people can ask questions to Lego.
Yeah, just hold that question until he comes back.
I'm gonna
Sure.
have to adjust a lot of volume. Holy shit! There's so many people in here.
All right.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a really loud microphone, so I can overpower everyone. So,
Yeah, no.
is there anyone that has a question for Lego?
I'm gonna lower you.
That's okay. You're fine. You can do that.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How is ownership distinct from possession?
All right, go ahead.
Hey, that was
Ownership
my
is
question.
Ownership would be a socially recognized entitlement, whereas possession would just be that you have it. So, like, if you take somebody's car, there's no social recognition that you have an entitlement to that car. So it's only possession of the car.
All right. Anyone? Do you want to follow up on that, or?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you explain socially recognizable? What does that mean?
socially recognized. So like the community that you're in recognizes that it is your car. So if you just take my car and the community recognizes that it's my car, well, you just have possession of my car.
Okay.
So, just the last follow up. If society or like your community recognizes something impossible, would that be the new reality?
No.
Lego, could you say that again?
No, the community recognizing something like a logical contradiction wouldn't make it somehow true or valid.
Got it. Thanks.
Can I jump in on
no
that?
problem. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to know, what does it mean for society to recognize something? I don't know what society means. Can you point to society? Is he like a guy?
You don't know what society means?
Well, I think I know it. I think it means a group of people, but I don't know what it means for a group of people to recognize something. Do they all recognize it?
It's weird that you said you don't know what it means, but then
Oh, so that is correct. Okay, so what does it mean for a group of people to recognize something?
Guys,
Do you know
guys,
what it means?
Wait.
What is it?
Guys, all right.
What does it mean for a group of people to
hold on,
recognize
Zulu,
something?
Sorry. So let's just go
Do
one
they
at a time.
all-
Let's try not to get at each other.
Do they all recognize
Zulu,
it?
You ask your question, then Lego you answer your question. Yeah.
I thought we were
Zulu,
letting
Lego,
the
go ahead.
public ask their questions.
Yeah, Zulu
We're not
wasn't
doing
here for this when you announced the format, but basically, we're just all gonna ask you guys questions.
Yeah.
You
So,
and
Zulu,
you and Lego.
If you're fine with that, of course. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be here.
We
of
could
course.
schedule a follow-up
I
debate
just,
on that.
I just
if
wanted
you
to run down this line real quick, because he did the same thing in the previous debate in the Q&A. I just don't know what it means for a group of people to recognize something.
Yeah, and
As a
I don't know
group,
I don't know why you say you don't know what society is, and then immediately
Okay, well,
say you know
do
what
they
society
all
is. I
have
don't
to
know why you
recognize
pretend
it?
not to understand
This isn't
I'm
good.
talking. I don't know why you pretend
Hold
not to
on,
know what
hold
I
on.
mean.
Do they
when
all
you
have to
explain
recognize it?
So,
Guys, come on.
yeah, the issue here is that you pretend not to
Why
understand
are you
concepts,
refusing to
and
answer
you're
me?
just
No,
Do they
no,
all
that's
have to
gonna give you some
recognize
Wait,
it?
guys.
rhetorical
All right.
points,
Guys.
Yes,
All right,
let's go.
So it seems like we're not really gonna go anywhere with this discussion.
Only because Lego refuses to
respectfully,
answer me.
I thought we were doing audience
Yeah, I know.
questions.
But,
What happened
yeah,
to
so
audience
what,
questions?
hold on, guys.
Shit.
Stop. So what
Let's
we're
just
gonna
have
do,
Sniffers speak here.
guys. All right. So what we're gonna do, all right, is we're gonna open the floor for questions. Now you could participate in this. You could not participate in it. It's up to you. But we're just gonna open up the floor to audience questions because I don't think anyone here wants to hear you guys arguing about the same thing that we just got done. I mean, do you guys?
Well,
all
isn't
agree
that
with
why
me on
everyone's
that?
here?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
No.
actually, before you
Yes.
came in here, we kind of all agreed that we were gonna have a Q&A thing, and that I was gonna sort of like
Kind of, yeah.
do a
No,
Q&A
I'm
thing,
saying
and
that
then I
everyone's
was,
here to
like, gonna
hear
ask
me
you
and
guys
Lego
questions.
argue. Like, that's why people are currently in this
Ooh,
VC.
kind of.
Yeah, so what if we do questions first and then you guys argue it out?
Yeah. How
Yeah, we
about
could do that.
Okay, so then how about this? First person that wants to ask a question, we ask a question, and then once we feel like we've exhausted the question asking, then you guys can go right at it. Is that okay?
Sure, can I ask the first
Sounds good.
question?
Holy shit.
Okay, but let's just try to keep it a question and not a debate, okay, Zulu?
Okay, so Lego, does every single person in society have to recognize your ownership of a car for it to be socially recognized? Or is it like a percentage, like 90%?
No, not everybody has to recognize it. It doesn't have to be universal.
You gonna address the or part?
All right.
I mean, I just answered your question. I thought
I
were
said,
into
or
audience
is it
questions,
a-
All
so
right.
that
So
we
next
can debate
percentage?
All right,
but-
all right, guys. So all right. And next person that wants to say something, just say I. And
Aye.
and then I'll
I
I? Who said that?
Wait, can I ask a question I was waiting for Zulu to come back for?
Oh, okay. You did ask a question first, so I'll let you ask the question first, and then next will be Eduardo. Okay. All right. So
Okay,
go ahead and ask your
Zulu.
question to Zulu.
What's the difference between possession and ownership?
Ownership is justified
Alright.
possession.
yeah.
All right. Is there a follow-up?
So
to that,
if you have possession of something, are you the owner only if it's justified? I guess, yeah.
Only if it's
Can you
justified.
explain that?
Yeah.
Justified by what?
How does it become justified?
Well, the property theory. Got a course on this.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so I can give you the basic terms of it if you want, but I can't go over the whole course.
It'll take some time, yeah.
It would take 3 hours.
Do you want to give the basic answer, or do you? Just...
Sure. So the basic answer is property rights are conflict avoiding norms. The reason why we have property in the first place is because we're trying to avoid conflict. Crusoe and Friday are on the desert island. Crusoe pulls a stick out of nature. He's walking to the ocean. He wants to spearfish with it. Friday comes along and he's like, that stick would be really good to stoke my fire with right now. And Friday tries to take off Crusoe. We've got a conflict here. We're trying to avoid conflicts here. So we've got the non-aggression principle, which I'm not going to prove for you right now. So from that very fact, we can say, well, Crusoe is the one in the right. He's allowed to go forth because he had it already, right? And so that is where we get the homestead principle from. That if you are the initial possessor of something, then you own it. And there's also a discussion in my course over how specifically you want to describe ownership. Is it initial direction? Is it initial possession? I normally describe it as the right to control a thing. These are all, you can also describe it as the right to exclude from a thing. These are all synonyms, and I explain how they're all synonyms in the course.
All right, cool. It seems like that seems like a pretty good answer. So,
Yeah.
Eduardo, do you seem like you said I, if I'm not mistaken?
No.
No, you didn't say
Yeah,
I.
I did. I did.
Okay. Go ahead. Ask your question.
I wanted to know how many people need to agree to something in order for that to be, I guess, justified.
Yeah.
Per
Like
Lego's
socially
model.
accepted, yeah.
I think that just depends on what that society has set up as the norms. If you have it set up as you have to have some super majority, for certain laws, and then those laws indicate that someone is or is not the owner, well, then in that case, it's ultimately comes down to a super majority. But I think the society would kind of determine that. Like there's not an objective, there's not a single objective answer to that. It could be just however society wants to set up ownership.
So in your model, it could be the case that like only one person has that discretion, right? Because they could just formulate the, I guess, model so that one person's relegated rather than a group.
You could have like a king that decides who owns what. Yeah, that wouldn't make it like like I said, it's not objective that you're the owner. It's just what's socially recognized. So if that society grants authority to a king to declare people owners and not owners, then yeah, they'd be the owner. And again, though, that's more so descriptive. It's not even normative. It's not saying like, oh, it's right that they're the owner. Or it's just saying it follows the societal norm.
Hold on.
I've got a question on this front. Hold on, because you're saying that the amount of society which needs to agree for something to be socially recognized depends on what society says, but then what portion of society needs to say it's that amount of society? Aren't you entering a third man problem
normative.
here?
There's no
fucking remove the word shoot from there. Fine, whatever.
I'm answering your question.
Hold on.
If you want to be quiet while I do. So there's no objective answer to it. So it's just a matter of this is how society determines ownership. Therefore, you do have the special privilege that qualifies you as owner.
Yeah, so that isn't what I was asking.
Right or wrong, what percentage of society?
Hold on.
There is no objective answer to that.
Right, no. So yeah, you were wrong about that. Then when you said you were answering my question, you were actually lying to me. So what I actually asked.
No, you're just asking a
no,
question that's
no,
nonsensical
no.
because you're-
What I actually asked you, what I actually asked you was that your claim was that the amount of society that needs to agree for something to be socially recognized depends on what society says. okay, well, how much of
I
society
do like you,
needs to
Sipis,
say
by the way. I
that?
know I'm mean to you all the time.
No, no,
but I
you're
do
no,
like
we're
you.
all good. But Zulu, hold on.
Okay.
Respectfully, I love both of you guys. I do respect and love both of you guys. But you guys, right now, we're trying to get out the questions first, and then you guys can debate. We're gonna let you guys debate, but you guys at least allow the rest of the guys to ask their questions first. Okay, is that cool? All right. All right. So next person that wants to ask their question, say aye.
Aye.
Already did.
Yeah,
Aye.
Casimir did.
Is there anybody else that wants to ask a question before
Casimir?
we
I would
get
like.
these guys?
Casimir
ready?
did.
Is there anyone else? Oh, Casimir. Okay, Casimir, go ahead.
So I'm a very simple human. I just want to act in the world, and I don't want to not act. So in order to act in the world, I need to. And this is a question for Lego. I need to find out what objectively is the thing that I own, and what is objectively the thing that I can control. And Lego, you said that I can never know objectively what I own, and so I can only find out post facto, post action, whether my actions were some kind of a conflict, or whether my actions were basically illegal. So if I am determined to act legally always, how can I survive in your type of worldview where no ownership can be objective?
Yeah, your P2 there, your premise 2 was that you cannot act unless you have an objective answer on what you do or do not own, which is just blatantly false. You can obviously act without knowing what is or is not yours. Like that doesn't make any sense. That would be like, can a cow act? Can a wolf act? Can a giraffe act? Yeah, they do act. They are in motion without having any conception of ownership. You don't need this concept of objective ownership in order for you to act. So I would just reject your P2. It's just obviously absurd. Like, we have tons of just mountains and mountains of examples of that just being false.
Yeah, that's not my P2.
That was your P2. You said you cannot act unless you have an objective answer to ownership, what you do and do not own. That was your P2.
Right.
So if you want to write it out, if you want to put a different number on it and write it out, I'll tell you. You can put it at whatever number you want, I guess, and I'll point out why it's wrong.
All right.
You dodge by equating.
It's not dodge. You had a false premise in your argument, so I reject your conclusion because it's dumb. So go ahead.
Clearly, I intended to ask you, and I did ask you from the perspective that I want to know before the act whether I'm justified to do it. If I was a mere animal, then I wouldn't know whether it's justified or not. For example, I could just sit here and filibuster if I didn't know ahead of time, because King Sidis told me that it's not a correct way to behave on this server, right? So I need to know the correct.
Casimir, you're not even debating anyone, so be quiet. Go, stop.
Shut the fuck up. Whoever the fuck that was. Casimir was doing a back and forth with Lego.
All right. So we're gonna let Casimir ask his, or I think he's finished with his. I don't know.
He was in the middle of speaking.
He's just asserting something that's false.
So this is what we're gonna do now. It seems like
I pointed out why it's false.
Hold on, Lego. Hold on, brother.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Just shoot. So it seems like all the questions are good right now. So we're gonna let Lego and Zulu talk, but I do want to ask you guys to try to let each other go one at a time, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so go ahead.
I had one, but I'm sorry, I just didn't.
Do you want to ask? You want to ask a question?
Yeah, it may be simple. It may be something that leads to something else. It's for Zulu, and it's the idea is that if shared ownership doesn't exist, then how do corporations exist? Or maybe more specifically, who owns a corporation?
Yeah, so I don't think a corporation is ownable. I don't think people go out and they go, oh my god, there's a corporation tree over there. I'm going to pluck a corporation off of it. I don't think ownership is a valid concept with respect to corporations. It's not a thing that you can own. It's not a thing you can have conflicts over.
It is a
now,
thing. It definitely is.
Wait. Let Zulu finish, okay, please.
Yes, so the way that a corporation occurs is it's a web of contracts. It's a bunch of people get together and say, I will trade this to you under these circumstances, and you'll trade this to me under these circumstances, yada, 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 yada. Now, the follow-up question is, of course, well, what about the property owned by the corporation? Who owns the Amazon factories and yada yada yada? I don't care how Amazon does it or how anybody else does it. I'm just saying that the easiest way to do it would just be have the CEO own it all. But he's under a bunch of these restrictive covenants, so he'll trade it off to other CEOs and other people if he does something wrong with it or whatever. Right? That's how it occurs. And any corporation which does not follow this schema that I've laid out, the title transfer theory of contracts, is invalid and doesn't actually exist. It's just people pretending. It's people playing market.
Okay, except it does exist. I mean, I don't understand. Like, you say pretending, and yet it's reality.
No, what is reality?
I think what Zulu is trying to say is that it's not valid in the property sense. Like, these people don't. They're saying
It's
that
not
they're
his
owning
definition of property sense. I'll agree with that.
Yeah. It doesn't fit the definition of the libertarian definition of property, because I don't believe in individual ownership. So.
Yeah, so I actually say right now, Mr. A3 Dots, Mr. A3 Dots, your name is censored on my stream at the moment. Mr. A3 Dots, I actually own your body. And because I say that, I'm allowed to rape you now. Right, this is how property happens. It's just, we just say things, and then that's the case.
That's not how it happens in corporations either.
Oh, so it's not just you say something and then it's the case. Oh, I
yes,
see.
Exactly.
Oh,
You might actually
wow.
have to
There
buy
are
shares
actual
if you hire
objective
to
standards
access.
behind this. Who could have saw this? Who could have seen this coming? Maybe I fucking did.
All right, Alley Cat. So it seems like that's pretty much
It's a yes.
that. Yeah.
That's
All
fine.
right, guys. So I don't think there's anyone else, right?
I have a
I have
question.
another question.
Just try to keep it respectful. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Who said?
Wait,
who
who's
said it?
asking the question?
Who's going? Who asked? Who said I?
Let's have a guy first.
I said I.
Okay, you go first, and then whoever's after you, go ahead. Eduardo.
I think you're talking to me. Okay, cool.
Yes, you. Yes, you.
So on the question of relegating that decision making to an individual, you said that's determined by society. Is there a portion of society that needs to agree to that too? Like, what specific portion? In order to
who's
relegate that
addressed
decision
to?
making to the king.
I
It's
think
to
that's
Lego.
addressed
I'm
to
just following.
Lego. I think that's addressed to Lego.
It's following up on the thing I was asking him earlier.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm doing other stuff. What was the question exactly?
So you said that the decision making can be relegated to one individual if society declares it so. That was from me asking how many people need to be in agreement to something, to which you said it doesn't need to be a specific person or a specific amount. So how many people, or what is the criteria that would make it so that king in your model has that authority? You said society has to make that decision. Again, like, is there a certain amount of society? Are there specific peoples you relegate to that as well? How does that work?
Can I clarify
answered
this
like 3 times. There
further?
is no objective. Well,
Wait,
I'm going
hold
to
on,
answer his
Zulu.
question first.
Yeah, let him.
There
let him-
is no objective answer. There is no. This is what percent or whatever. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and clarify what the problem is that Eduardo is pointing out.
Zulu, 1 second. 1 second.
I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Guys, let's let Lego finish. And then...
Yeah,
it's just going to
So-
be relative to that society's values and how they want to set up their system of governance. There is no objective answer of what percentage of people would have to agree to a thing.
Right, so yeah, you've ignored Eduardo's issue, and that's why I wanted to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. So you have it that for something to be socially recognized, for property to be socially recognized, a certain portion of society needs to agree for it to be socially recognized. Okay, what portion of society? Well, that portion of society is determined by society. And what amount of society needs to determine that? Well, that's going to be determined by society. And what portion of society needs to determine that? That's going to be determined by society. So on ad infinitum. You fail the third man objection against Plato. That is what you're doing here. You have an infinite regress. Aristotle would poke holes through you, Mr. Frog.
He wouldn't. He would agree with me.
All right. So that's the end of that question. Last question from whoever said I after Eduardo. I don't know who said I.
I said
me.
Who?
May
What, now I hear 2 people saying me. So
Was the person in the cave PFP?
What?
No, it's the person at the bottom, it's the Turk.
Okay. Oh, the Turkish guy looking Zep.
Yes.
Okay,
I
you
am
can
gay,
ask your
but
question. Keep it respectful. All right, go ahead.
yes, it is about the NAP. Up until recently, I believed it was if you were attacked physically, like someone breaks into your house, you can retaliate. But recently, I learned that threats also apply. Does this mean that somebody that advocates for a radical ideology that is against private property, can I attack them, and how much?
So
I don't advocate for violence, I'm just asking.
before anybody says anything, I will remind them that I will leave in a second if somebody violates YouTube terms of service. So I'm just going to give the theory here. The theory is that aggression means the initiation of conflict. If you initiate conflict against someone, then you are an aggressor. An initiation of conflict can include the use of threats. Go off with that information however you wish, but personally, you're not going to be on. Nobody's going to be on stream anymore if anybody's more explicit than that. So I'm going to cut that conversation off there.
Yeah, let's not go deeper than that. All right, so this is going to be the final question.
Kreta?
You know who I'm talking. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't have a question.
Oh, you didn't have a question? Somebody?
No,
it was you.
I said not me. Maybe I.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
then,
my
all
bad.
right, guys. All right, that's it. Let's let Lego and Zulu get at it. But the only, like I said earlier, just try to keep it one person at a time. I don't want to have to go guys over and over again. All right.
Sure. So Lego, what's your answer to the third man objection?
There's just no. Your objection is baseless. I'm just saying that the collective values of that society are going to result in some. There's going to
What
be
does a
some
collective
emergent
value
government
mean?
from that society. I'm telling you an answer here, and you can't wait until the end of it. Apparently.
Yeah, what does a collective value mean? I don't know what that means.
I literally said that in the answer that you cut off. There's some aggregate of the values of that society.
How do you aggregate values?
In some emergent. I'm trying to answer you, and you keep cutting me off. So it makes it hard to give you the answer you want if you won't shut the fuck up and listen.
Let him finish his sentence.
Sure,
all right.
but I don't believe he's going to answer me, and that's why I keep cutting him off. So, how do you aggregate values?
No,
So he asked the question and he cuts off the answer, and his excuse is, "Well, I don't think he's going to."
I will zip my lips until I will zip my lips and let you finish talking. All right, and I guarantee you will not answer. How do you aggregate values?
Yeah, we don't have to have some objective measure of the aggregate value. There's going to be some emergent government that results from this society, and then that society's government is going to have some system that determines ownership. That's all we need. I don't need some objective answer to what it would or would not be as far as percentages or how do we aggregate the value. It's just whatever the outcome is. There is an outcome, and then that outcome is going to relatively determine ownership in that society. It's not just normative, it's descriptive. It's not that it's right or wrong, that is how they determine ownership. It just is how that society determines ownership. And for you to treat this as a third man problem is for you to treat it as something that never happens. When we see just example on top of example of societies coming up with their own ways of determining ownership, it does happen. Like, you can't pretend that this is something impossible or contradictory when it exists in reality.
Yeah, so I was entirely correct in my prediction. I asked you, how do you aggregate values? Shut up.
Lego.
You started off by saying, well, that government's going to have some system that determines ownership, not answering the question, and then you slipped in there real quick. I don't need an answer on how to aggregate values, but that's exactly what I fucking asked you. Retard. Tell me how to aggregate values.
It's a stupid question. I'm pointing out that it's
it's a stupid question. You said in your answer to me that you have some value of society, and the way you get to this value of society is that you aggregate those values. And you think it's stupid for me to ask, how do you aggregate values? Like, I think you're actually stupid. I don't think you're an intelligent person.
There is some emergent government that results from this society.
and determines ownership, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you how you aggregate values.
So we don't need some way of
I
determining
asked you how you aggregate values. How do you aggregate values? If you don't care about it, why did you use it in your fucking answer to me? Idiot.
So he's asking.
Yeah, because I'm not retarded like you. That's why I don't pretend to not
You
understand.
even steal my insults against you. You can't come up with anything original.
Bro. You're retarded. Okay, I get it. You're
So
retarded. You
true.
gotta pretend to be retarded so you can avoid
This is going
my
nowhere.
position. I get it.
So when I asked you, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? How does society come up with these things? You said, well, idiot, Zulu. Well, what you have is you have the value of society. I asked you, what is a value of society? You said, well, actually, we just aggregate values of society. I asked you, how do you aggregate values? And you said, stop interrupting me. I'm trying to answer you. And then you didn't fucking answer that. And now you're refusing to answer that because you cannot, because you're an actual fucking dumbass, and you've not thought about this.
Can you guys respect King Sith as a moderator? Can you respect him as a moderator?
You have not thought about this since the last time I brought this fucking objection to you. And King Sith is not the fucking moderator.
I am the right now. I am right now. So,
We all agreed he's the moderator.
I didn't.
So
we aggregated our values. He's our moderator.
So
we need to have some order. So
guys.
People talk.
He is merged as the moderator.
Yeah, so we all agreed that I'm the moderator.
What a shit show.
Our collective values resulted in you being the moderator. It's almost like it was an emergent outcome.
Lego, respect him.
Okay.
You're saying that I'm the moderator, but you're not being quiet when I told you.
Sorry. I'm gonna respect the social contract. You are the moderator.
Lego, come on, stop.
I'm doing it. Quiet.
So, like we gotta cool down. We gotta not have the name calling here, because like if we just name call each other, like where are we going with this? We're not going anywhere with this. So from here on out, like let's just one person at a time. Lego, please try to be, let one person at a time, and you as well, Liquid. I need you to please just let him finish what he says.
I'm not going to be respectful to him and let him finish what he has to say if he's not going to answer my questions. Why the hell would I?
I'm not gonna be respectful to you if you don't let me answer your questions. You fucking retard.
Okay, so hold on. But your problem is that you're not. Your problem is that I'm not letting you answer questions, but you don't answer questions.
Guys, this is not gonna go anywhere. This is literally not gonna go.
Guys, let's cut out the insults to start Lego. Let's just start over with.
I will endorse King Sithis as moderator.
Yeah, let's cut out
hold
interruptions and insults.
I will endorse King Sithis as moderator if he enforces that Lego answers my fucking questions.
Okay. This is what I'm gonna do.
And my current question is, how do you aggregate values?
Hold on, Liquid. Okay. So you ask him a question, and he's gonna respond to it. Now, how he responds is up to him. I can't make him respond.
What if he responds, well, I have a chicken. Okay? I had a chicken last night for dinner. And he takes that as a response.
There's nothing you can do. Yeah, but
all right. Well, then you'll win the
what's the point of a what's the point of a fucking moderator?
There's nothing else you can do. Well, I don't know what you want me to do. I can't put words in his mouth. You can ask him a question, but how he answers is up to him.
Well, you could not prevent me from cutting him off when he's clearly not fucking answering my question.
No, well, I don't. I'm preventing. Hold on, I'm preventing.
Interrupt me.
Hold on, I'm preventing both of you guys from interrupting each other. It's not just you, okay? It's okay. So this is a
right, but I'm saying my interruptions were proper. I was correct to interrupt him, as evidenced by the fact that he is now refusing to answer my question. He was pissed off that I wasn't letting him answer my question, and he's refusing to answer my question.
No one should be that we don't interrupt. No one is proper in interrupting anyone right now, okay? Because would
you agree to just have debate him in a format where you each take turns? Let's say 30 seconds or a minute each.
Take it easy.
Is that okay?
No, I refuse to do any turns-based debating. I think it's retarded.
He refuses. He can't do it. He can't
so, Lego, I want you to tell me how do you aggregate values?
You guys shouldn't debate because
I will zip my lips again. As I zipped my lips earlier, I will zip my lips again.
Fight!
Shut up.
All right.
Lego, shut up. Lego,
correct
I
your
will
position
shut up.
because you have stupid
Shut up.
points that rely on
Shut
No,
up.
he's arguing
Shut
right now that
up.
he's allowed
Everybody
to.
I have a
shut
question.
Going to
up.
interrupt
No more.
Everybody
agrees
shut up.
until
No
he
Lego,
agrees that we shouldn't
I
interrupt.
will
I'm
zip
gonna
my
continue
lips
to interrupt.
again.
If he okay,
Shut
so
up.
do you agree
Wait,
that we
wait,
should
wait,
Shut
wait.
interrupt?
Lego,
up.
please. Lego,
Jesus
please.
fucking Christ, Lego.
Listen, I am the moderator.
Stop
I am the
talking to us
moderator.
for 3
Then
seconds.
make him agree.
I
Listen,
will
Zulu, stop.
I will
Zulu,
zip my lips
stop.
again,
Zulu,
as I
Zulu.
already zipped my
Okay,
lips
Zulu,
earlier,
zip your lips
and
now.
did not
Zip your lips
interrupt.
now. How about
I'm
that?
giving you a
Both of you guys.
stipulation. I will zip my lips, and
Just not-
let
stop
Lego
talking.
answer
Stop talking.
my question. How do you aggregate
will,
values?
but you
And
gotta-
everybody will see that he will not answer. Lego, how do you aggregate values?
Wait,
He's
I have a
he just wants
question.
us to talk
What's the
and
recenter,
talk.
folks?
Okay, are you guys good? All right. So this is what we're gonna do. Zulu, you ask a question. Lego, when he answers the question, you just don't say anything, and then when he's finished, then you could respond, and then that's it. All
Are there
right.
limits, or
All
is
right.
there infinity here?
There's no limits. Just say what you need to say.
Wait, we
Just
sign
at
up
least
for him to
just
speak for infinity time? That's
well,
deadly.
maybe not infinite time, but you know what I'm trying to say. Oh, bro,
No, I
come
don't
on.
know what you're trying
Come
to
on,
say.
bro.
Casimir,
Okay,
stop.
Liquid,
We're
go
sick
ahead.
of you.
This is awful moderating.
Wait, I don't sign up for infinity of Lego.
You're a
Energy.
good moderator, Sid.
Be
I
quiet,
believe in you. I think you're actually
Casimir.
doing a good job with
I'm
what
Casimir,
you're
no one
trying to
wants
do a
to
good
hear you
job, but I
talk.
don't have
Yeah.
the power to
I
mute
think you
people.
are.
So
Casimir, you're fucking
okay.
bullshit.
With what you're dealing with, you're doing a good job.
But Lego, I need you to please.
I'll stop. I'll let him talk. I'll
I
let him
respect
talk.
you.
This is
I respect
unbelievable.
the compliments,
Oh,
but whatever.
yeah.
So Zulu, ask your question.
Right. So my lips were already zipped. I've unzipped them now.
They're unzipped. Go
As
ahead.
per excellence, I did not speak. My question is, Lego, and if you refuse to answer this, you have demonstrated to everybody that you have a tiny little peanut brain.
Does he agree to not interrupt?
Lego, shut up.
Does he agree to that?
Lego,
Whoa,
shut up.
where's Lego's
Does he
lip
agree
zip?
not to interrupt me?
Where's Lego's lip
Does he
zip?
not to interrupt
He's
me?
already agreed. He's agreed.
No, he
He's
hasn't.
agreed.
No, he hasn't.
Where the
No, he
fuck is
hasn't.
Lego's
He
lip
said
zip?
zip
He
his
just-
lips.
Okay, Lego, I'm
out,
gonna go
you're
ahead
out.
and mute you on
Everybody-
the stream, because that's the only
don't
place
give
this
a
is going
shit
to
if
be
you-
heard.
Lego,
So that's
just
the only
shut
place it's
up.
important.
Lego, shut up for a second. Be quiet, please.
So I'm gonna tell you guys. Currently, King Sithis and Lego are muted on the stream, which is the only important place here. That's the only place this is being recorded. So, I'm telling you now, Lego, I am asking you this question. Master Arceosis, you're muted. Josephius, you're muted. Lego, how do you aggregate values?
And then you answer afterwards.
I'm not going to answer unless he agrees not to interrupt the answer.
That'd be okay. Well, you already know what's gonna happen. Just let him.
Yeah, he's
say
going to
what he needs
interrupt me.
say.
So why the fuck should I even start? He's going to let me get three
Okay,
words
so
in
then
and then
why are
interrupt
you
me.
here?
So,
Why are we arguing this then?
because
we
he's
doing
either
this?
going to agree to not interrupt me, or I won't answer the question. It's pretty simple.
Okay,
he either
Liquid, do
agrees
you-
to let me answer, or he
Zulu,
doesn't
do you-
ask the
do you-
question.
Okay, do you hear me, Zulu?
Yep.
No, it seems like he's got me.
Yes.
You hear me?
Have
Yeah,
you
he's
heard
got the
have you heard
moderator
me
muted,
speak this
so I
entire
will
time?
respect his
Have you heard me
authority
speak?
because
I'm
Jesus
respecting
Christ,
you, but you
Lego!
told me
I'm
that I
not
was
speaking
muted,
during
so
your
I didn't
answer.
know if you could hear me
Answer
or
me.
not. So
Fucking answer me. How do you aggregate values? I'm
Lego-
not speaking. I will not interrupt you. How do you aggregate values?
okay, there you go.
Yeah,
so
and I
he
already
says
told
he's
you, I
not going to
don't-
interrupt you. So just
Okay,
answer
and
the
I'm
question.
answering. Yeah. I don't have an objective way of aggregating value. As I said initially, there is no way of objectively determining who should or should not be the person who is correct, rather than having some way of aggregating this value and getting an objective answer. It would just be the emergent government that determines what is or is not the way of determining an owner. There is no objectively correct way of saying this is the owner. There's no way of getting some exact quantitative answer on how we aggregate value. That's not what I was positing. You just misunderstood the position, or deliberately misunderstood it, more likely, so that you could try to say, well, give me the objective answer on the aggregated value. That's not what I was positing.
All right, is that your answer, Lego?
It is my answer.
So-
All right, Zeko Zulu, what is your response?
I was asking you, how do you figure these things out? How do you determine property? And you said, well, There's just a value of society. That's how you figure out property. That's how me, the man on the street, would figure out who owns what. Okay, there's a value of
There
property.
is no objective answer.
Whoa, whoa, where's his lip zip?
All right,
Yeah.
I'll zip. Go ahead.
Oof, all these accusations. Look what Zoo's gonna interrupt. Look what Zoo's gonna interrupt.
Yeah,
And look who it was.
'cause you keep
And you're
doing
still
it.
doing it.
I'll zip, though.
And you're still doing it.
Lego, stop. You said you were gonna
I'll let
stop,
him-
and now you're
I'll
keep
let him go.
talking.
I'll stop.
No,
Literally
stop.
just shut up.
Guys,
Okay.
guys, this isn't good.
Stop. Okay.
Okay,
Good, go ahead.
so I was asking you, how do I, the man on the street, just an average Joe, a regular dude, how do I know who owns things? Well, it's gonna be that there's some value of society. There's this value of society, and it determines who owns what. Okay, well, how do you determine the value of society? Well, you said it comes from aggregating values. And I asked, well, how do you aggregate values? And you say, well, there is no way of objectively aggregating values. So, what the fuck? How do I, the man on the street, figure out who owns what?
Yeah, and I've already told you that there's going to be some emergent government that has rules that determine and societal norms that determine this is the person who is or is not the owner. We don't need some objective way of aggregating the value for there to be an outcome. We have governments, we have societies that have norms that have emerged out of that society. Like, I don't need to give you some objective way of measuring or quantifying this aggregate value. All we need to know is that there is some emergent norm for this is who is or is not the owner. The fact that we have the outcome already makes the idea that I need to somehow give you an objective measure of how we arrived at it ludicrous. And I'm not positing or suggesting that there is some objective way of doing so.
How many Jews do you think were murdered in the Holocaust?
Oh my God. How many do you think were murdered?
6 million.
Okay, I think it was more than that. So you must be a racist Nazi.
That isn't what I was getting at. Hold on. Why were any
He's a
Jews?
Nazi. Are we talking to a Nazi now? Why are we
Lego,
talking to this
let me
Nazi?
finish.
Stop.
Lego, why were any Jews murdered in the Holocaust if the emergent government determines who owns what? Because you see, the emergent government was the German government, and they determined that Adolf Hitler owned all those Jews. So they weren't murdered, clearly.
No, I already told you it's not normative, it's descriptive. And again, you're failing to understand
Murder
the
means
position.
killing
You're
another
treating your
person
ability-
when
I'm
they
still
own their
talking.
body.
Shut the fuck up, you moron. I'm still talking.
Wait,
So,
All right,
stop.
gentlemen,
I already
gentlemen,
told you,
listen, we got it.
I'm still talking. I'm still talking. All right? I've already
right, hold
told you it's descriptive.
Wait, hold on. This is not punitive. I just need to. This is a casual after the fact thing.
Thank you so much.
We don't need here, and I'm not going to come in here and give you guys the impression that we're going to go for the whole rest of the night with a fully structured debate. That's not going to happen. But in a casual debate, there's going to be a little bit of crosstalk, but I'm going to step in if we're going to start calling each other names and stuff like that. And I'm not pointing any fingers. I think it's both, probably. But let's just try to keep it a little bit more civil. And I'm going to, while you guys continue civilly, I'm going to try to find some moderators, and we'll trial some moderators and see if we can sort of distribute the moderation role out here a little bit, and we'll see how that goes. But let's just keep it a little bit civil. And remember, we already know ahead of time that not only neither of the two people that are really the main participants here, neither of you guys are going to change each other's minds, and I'm pretty sure that nobody in the audience is going to either change their minds right now. Could happen, but because the stakes are a little bit low, let's just hold ourselves to a little bit of a higher standard in terms of whether we get frustrated or not. Now I'll meet you guys, and you'll have to trust me in the background to find some quality moderators to trial out here.
Yeah, so why isn't it the case that zero Jews were murdered during the Holocaust? Why is that not the
Whoever's
case?
the moderator here, I was answering and he interrupted me, so can I answer?
Okay, so
Well, I
it
interrupted
seems like
you.
where we left off was
Yeah, we left off
Hold on,
with
hold
me
on, hold on, hold
answering.
on, hold on, hold on. It looks like Zulu was asking a question, right? So let Zulu ask his question, and then
He
afterwards
asked the question. I was answering it. I was in the
Okay,
middle
so
of
how about-
answering it, and he interrupted me.
Okay, so how about this? I don't remember the question, so how about Zulus re-say the question and then you re-answer it? How about that? Okay.
Sure.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Go ahead.
the German government's defense at the Nuremberg trials, it was, well, under German law, we're the emergent government who determines who owns what. Under German law, it's actually okay to kill Jews because they don't have any rights. So I want to know why it is that it isn't the case that 0 Jews were murdered. Why aren't they all just killed? Why aren't they all just killed at the Holocaust? Why are they murdered?
All right. Go ahead.
All right. And I've already pointed out numerous times that this is not a normative claim that I'm making.
So you don't think it's bad?
It's just descriptive that society will have some. You could be quiet while I answer your questions. You might get my answer then. Maybe then you would finally understand what it is I'm telling you if you stopped talking during the answer. So it's not a normative claim that society determines ownership. That society determines ownership is purely descriptive. They have norms, they have rules that emerge out of society that determine this person is the owner or this person is not, but it doesn't mean that they rightfully possess the thing. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong that they possess the thing. It's just the case that there are rules that emerge from the society that determine the owner. It's a purely descriptive claim.
Right, and
what is somebody? I nominate Lego as the moderator. Who said that? Well, who was that? Somebody said
Wait,
I
are
should be the
you
moderator.
wait,
Who's that?
Lego, are you finished with your answer?
I will say too. I think Sithis. The last part of my answer would be that Sithis should be the moderator.
Right.
I
Okay.
mean, I'm
and
already
so
doing it, so
the
all right.
right. Okay. And so the distinction between the concepts of killing and murder is that in one case you're violating rights, whatever the fuck you think rights are. I don't care if you think they're normative or not. Okay. That is the distinction between murder and killing. That's why it's not called murder when somebody does an execution, for instance. Right? So why didn't you say 0 Jews were murdered during the Holocaust?
Because I think it was wrong to kill those Jews. It was a wrongful killing. It was murder.
Whoa.
Just because ownership is
hold
not
on.
an objective claim doesn't mean I have
Wait.
No.
Let him
Let
finish.
me answer. Hold on. Yeah. Maybe wait till you get the full answer
Zulu,
before
let him
you
finish.
lose your mind. So
All right, hold on
yeah,
one
just
second.
because-
This is good for both of you. All right, I'm just making a quick announcement. I'm handing out some very quick moderator permissions here. They're only trial, so if anybody isn't happy with somebody's performance, please message me privately if they're doing something inappropriate. Sithis and a few other people, you have mod perms. Just to keep this stable, if you have to, because Sithis, you're kind of doing this thing right now where you're saying, okay, did you answer the question? Okay, is that your question? That's fine, but it might keep everything flowing better if you just mute them and unmute them back and forth so they're not cross-talking
Well,
each
yeah,
other.
I just didn't have the power, so to do so.
Don't worry.
Mhm.
But-
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to confession, but take care, guys. I love you all. Take care. Take care,
Love you
guys.
too. Love you too.
Peace. Peace.
All right. And I'm going to still be here, just muted or deafened. So if my trial here is making things worse or not fixing it, just let me know. I'll try something else. All right. Keep
All
going.
right.
Sorry for the interruption. I'm just trying to help this be more beneficial to everybody.
All right, so respectfully to both of you guys, I'm no longer gonna say yo. I'm just gonna mute whoever's interrupting the other party. Okay. All right.
Approved.
So
Do
the
it.
last person who was speaking was, I think, Lego.
Yeah, I was pointing out that just because ownership is not normative, that doesn't mean murdership is not normative. Murder would be the wrongful killing of a person, and the Jews were wrongfully killed. Therefore, over 6 million Jews were murdered. Because I acknowledge that there were even more than that are counted, because I'm not a Nazi. But just because murder is not descriptive doesn't mean ownership has to be normative. Like that doesn't follow at all.
Why? Are you objectively not a Nazi, or just in your opinion?
Wait, hold on, Casimir. Why Lego? That's actually something that I wanted to chat with you about. Why?
Yeah, hold on. Why is murder wrongful?
No. Wait, hold on. Wait.
Person at a time, yeah.
Why does that apply to? Why does that apply to ownership but not murder?
No, I'm saying that murder is normative, but
Yes, why?
ownership is
Why is murder wrongful?
Yeah, why?
Hold on.
Because
hold
when
on.
Yeah.
Let him go.
Because when we say that there was a murder, it's tautologically that it entailed by that it was wrong. Like it is a normative claim when you say murder. You're
But
saying
why
this
was it
a
wrong
wrongful
to kill the
killing.
Jews?
Like the definition. I'm still talking. If you could
Yeah,
just
let's
be
just please.
quiet.
Go
All
ahead.
right.
You're not fucking answering the goddamn question,
It is
Jesus.
murder, we're saying it was a wrongful killing. So necessarily,
Dance around.
tautologically, it is
Just
going to be
dance
normative.
around.
Whereas
So no, that
I
well,
don't. I
hold
mean,
on.
he cannot let someone answer a
Don't
question
worry,
because
there's a muted. Go ahead. Answer your question.
okay. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but only because he keeps interrupting me. When we say murder, we're saying it was a wrongful killing. It's tautological to murder that it was wrongful killing. So yes, whenever I
My
say
God, bro, this
the
is not the
Jews were
fucking
killed,
question.
I'm communicating that I consider those wrongful killings when I say it was murder. Whereas when I say ownership, I'm not communicating anything normative with that. I'm just communicating that the norms of that society grant a special privilege to some person or group of persons. So it's whenever I say it's normative versus descriptive, I'm just clarifying to you what I'm communicating to you, whether I'm communicating some moral statement or whether I'm communicating a purely descriptive statement. I'm just telling you that that is the outcome of that society.
Yeah, so again,
so
you didn't
then,
answer the
real quick,
question. Hold on, let me go back and forth with Lego here. So again, the question was clearly getting at why is this type of thing immoral? That's what it's getting at. Why is this thing immoral? And you said, well, tautologically, murder means it's immoral, and and you just kept going on and on about that. Why is this immoral? Why is these specific types of things being done by the Nazis to the Jews, these specific particular events, why are they immoral? Why are they murder rather than killing?
All right.
Whenever the Nazis killed these Jews, they were not treating them as ends in themselves. They were treating them as objects, means to their own ends. They wanted to steal from these people. They wanted to achieve some society without these people. You know, I don't want to go. I'm not a historian on Nazism, but clearly they were violating these individuals as ends in themselves. Whereas me saying this person owns this versus some other person owning it, I'm not violating them as an ends in themselves. I'm not treating them as a means to my own ends. Whenever I say John owns the bicycle versus Kevin, I'm just expressing what the societal rules would dictate as the owner. You know, this is the person that bought it. He's the owner. That's all I'm communicating because the rules in that society say whoever bought it's the owner. I'm not saying it's whether it's right or wrong that you can buy a bike. I'm not saying it's right or wrong whether someone takes a bike from a guy, makes him the owner. You know, you could have a society where it is might makes right, where basically if I take a bike from you, possession is ownership. You could have a society like that. I'm not communicating whether that's right or wrong when I say that the guy who took the bike is the owner. I'm just saying that society determines ownership by possession.
Okay, so why is it that treating people not as ends in themselves, but rather just as means towards end, why is that wrongful? Why is that immoral? Why is that bad?
Because it would be irrational, because you would be endorsing the treating of people as a mere means to someone else's end, which would therefore make it okay to treat you as a mere means to someone else's end, which would violate your own self-interest. It would be irrational for you to do that, to say, oh yeah, you can, I'm okay, I want you to enslave me. And it's like, well, no, I mean, the idea of slavery is that it's forced, or like, I want to be raped. And it's like, well, it's not rape then. Like, it doesn't make sense. It would be contradictory.
So it violates the categorical imperative. Is that the underline?
No, that's not what I said. You could just respond to what I said. It would be contradictory.
I mean, okay, sorry, I'm trying to abstract here. So what is the general statement then, if not the categorical imperative?
Do you just want me to repeat myself, or
what
if
you think the general statement,
what he said is actually part of the categorical, but it.
Go ahead, Zulu.
So I'm confused about. So this sounds a whole lot like the categorical imperative. Apparently, it's not the categorical imperative. What the fuck is it then? Where you're endorsing people, Where you,
That's what it is.
if you try and universalize this, then it can be, it doesn't work for yourself. It would be against yourself, so it can't be universalized. That's a whole lot like how I've heard the categorical imperative described. So what the fuck is this then? What is the general statement if not Kant's categorical imperative?
If you consider it to be the same as his categorical imperative, I'm fine with you considering it to be the same. But I'm only going to defend my positions and my statements. I'm not going to defend something that you attribute to Kant and then demand that I defend. I'm going to defend my position. So if you want to consider my position to be the categorical imperative, okay, fine. But don't later go, oh, well, that's not the categorical imperative.
Okay, so right, I'll just restate your position then to see if I've got it right.
I can't
To see if I got it right. To see if I've got it right. It is irrational.
Go ahead, Zulu.
Because it's endorsing the mere treating of people as a means towards an end. This also endorses others treating you as a means to an end. Is that correct?
That's what I said, yep.
You see? Brilliant, when I can just say things and you'll say, yep, that's correct, or no, I mean actually this. Brilliant, when you don't fucking interrupt me. Shut up, shut up, moderator, please mute him.
Don't worry,
okay,
Kyle. Sorry.
So,
Zulu, please.
Why is it that something becomes wrongful when you're doing this thing, where you're endorsing the mere treating as people towards an end, but also endorsing others treating you as a means towards an end? Why does that make it wrongful? Where does the wrongfulness come from?
All right, Lego.
You already.
Lego, I don't know if you know, but we can't hear you.
I guess he's gone now.
Lego, is it just me, or is it just me, or you? Now we can hear you. Can you restate what you said? Because we didn't hear anything that you said. Oh, now your mic is messing up again. Sorry, but your mic is messing up again.
Yeah, you're lagging.
Yeah. Maybe go somewhere where there's better internet and restate what you just said.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
We can hear you.
We're good.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying that it's wrong because it's contradictory. It's irrational. That's what that for me is what qualifies as wrong.
What is the contradiction?
All right.
The contradiction would be that you would be violating your own self-interest, which you have self-interest. You can't endorse violating your own self-interest without just a blatant contradiction. You're basically saying, like, I want you to do what I don't want you to do. That's a contradiction.
The statement as you've given it to me, and as you've endorsed my writing it down of, is that it's irrational because you're endorsing the mere treatment of...
you writing it down.
Shh. Because you're endorsing the mere treatment... sorry. It is irrational because you're endorsing the real... it is irrational because you're endorsing the mere treating of people as a means towards an end, but this also endorses others treating you as a means to an end. I want you to describe what the contradiction is in that specific statement.
Yeah, so I'll point out that I never said I endorsed anything that he wrote down. I don't know what
I
he wrote
asked you
down.
if you agreed to it, and you said yes.
Just completely up. Well, I'm still talking. So I don't know what he wrote down. What he wrote down may be completely wrong.
I fucking asked him if he agreed with it, and he said yes.
So I'm not endorsing anything he wrote down because again, I'm still talking. I haven't seen what he wrote down. So I haven't endorsed what he wrote down. The contradiction would be that you're basically, if you're violating your own self-interest, you're essentially saying, I want you to do what I don't want you to do. I both want you to do it and not want you to do it. It's a P and not P. So there's a contradiction there.
All right, Zulu, go ahead.
Okay, so this person has... I mean, we can skip that step if you want.
No, I don't want to skip it. I actually want to discuss it because you want to pretend like
No,
I've answered
I'm
it
saying
and I
we're
have
skipping.
answered it, and then you're saying, oh, well, maybe we should skip it. I don't
Whoa,
want to skip it.
no, I was saying you're skipping the fucking step. I was saying you're skipping the step, and I was going to move on to what you said. But fine, let's not skip it then. Let's not skip it then. I want you to tell me, because you fucking endorsed when I asked you, is this the thing you're claiming? You said yes. You endorsed it. Okay, so, is it irrational? It is irrational because you're endorsing the mere treating of people as a means towards an end, but this also endorses others treating you as a means to an end. What specifically is the contradiction in that claim?
Right, so I'll point out again, I don't know what he wrote down, and what I said is...
You endorsed it!
What he wrote down, because I don't know what he... Again, shut the fuck up while I talk. So, I don't know what you wrote down. I'm going to repeat myself every time you interrupt me, by the way. I don't know what he wrote down, so I'm not endorsing what he wrote down. I did say that it would be a contradiction. Yeah, I agreed to that, but I don't know what he wrote down. And then I've already told you what the contradiction would be. If you're endorsing a violation of your own self-interest, you're essentially saying, I want you to do what I don't want you to do. I want you to do it, and I don't want you to do it. It's P and not P. That's the contradiction. I've told you the contradiction like 3 times, and then you keep just going, well, let me reword it, and now tell me what the contradiction is. I've already told you what the contradiction is.
I never once said reword it. And I guess we will just skip on to the thing you want to discuss. Okay, so this person says they want P and they want not P. Okay, so they have contradictory wants. Why does this get us to the concept of ought? Where does the ought come from?
Yeah, I've already answered this too. What I consider to be right or wrong would be whether it's irrational or irrational. So it is irrational, it's contradictory, so I consider that wrong. That is the content of right or wrong for me.
Okay, why do you think it's irrational?
I've answered this so many times. Maybe you should write it down, but like write down what I'm actually saying.
I fucking did, and you said, yep, that's what I'm saying.
You want them? I'm answering you. Shut the fuck up, you stupid.
Okay, chill,
And let me answer you, okay? Write down what I actually say. It's irrational because you both want them to do it and don't want them to do it. You want them to do the thing you don't want them to do. It's P and not P. Write that down so that I don't have to keep saying it.
All right, Zulu.
Sure, so why is that irrational? Why is it irrational to endorse contradiction?
Because it's P and not P. It's contradictory.
Yeah, I want to know on your philosophy.
You're asking me, why is a contradiction a contradiction?
No. I asked you, why is a contradiction irrational? I want to know on your philosophy. I know why contradictions are irrational, but it's very different to what I would say. I want to know why you think that contradictions are invalid. I want to know why you think that a contradiction is immoral. Why a contradiction is irrational. I want you to tell me that.
Behaving in a contradictory
All right,
way,
Lego,
or having
hold
contradicting
on.
desires.
Restate what you just said because I just muted you because you were kind of interrupting him.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So Zulu agrees with me that behaving in a contradictory way or having contradicting desires would be irrational. He agrees with me on that, right? Is that the case, Zulu? Do you agree with me on that?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So there you go.
So because we agree to it, it's true?
No, we agree that it would be irrational. So we don't need to debate whether it is irrational.
No, I want to know why.
We agree it's irrational.
Because
it's irrational.
I'm sensing that, I've got this Jedi mind powers. I'm sensing that you're going to have a very incoherent answer to this, which is why I want to know what your answer to.
Well, that's cool, but we agree on the premise. So
why is it that that's irrational to endorse contradictions? Why are contradictions not true?
for me, that is the content of it being irrational. It's contradictory. Contradictions are impossible in real life. Like you can't have an actual contradiction occur. So
Why?
I mean, it's just tautologically the case that if it's contradictory, it is irrational.
Right? Why can't you have a contradiction occur?
Oh my god, dude! I think you're floundering, and
Okay,
you're
well,
just trying to be
Moderator,
like
join in.
think-
This is kind of boring.
Yeah, hold on. I think what like Lego, if you don't mind, I think what Zulu is trying to pinpoint is, I think he's just trying to ask you is what is your reasoning as to why you think there's a, or what is your reasoning to why contradictions are wrong, or why there is a contradiction? Is that correct, Zulu?
Yeah, so I want to know whether he's going to appeal to.
Like, he wants to know your reasoning.
I want to know whether he's going to appeal to reality
I've given
and
it
like
and asked him to
explain
write it
things
down.
based
I
on the
don't-
nature of things, or if he's going to go like, well, there's this category in your brain and it says that there can't be contradictions. I want to know if he's done his philosophy 101 yet.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So like,
Yeah,
it seems
what I
like he
think
wants to
he's
know your
trying to do
reasoning.
is grasp, and he's grasping for straws is what he's doing.
Well,
okay,
it doesn't matter. Just try to answer the question if you can.
it does matter because it's boring, and everyone here is probably bored with him being like, "Why is irrational behavior or why is contradiction irrational?" Like, dude, that's what it means. Like, it's tautologically the case. It's just how we
Yeah,
use
so
the
this is
word.
this
Like,
is
that's
what I was
words
worried
mean,
about.
and you agree.
What
Wait,
is
shut
what
the
is
fuck
any of this?
up.
Let him
Shut
finish.
up.
What does this have to do with property rights?
This
Shut
is
up.
this is what I was worried about.
We agree on this premise, even. I'm not going to debate a thing we agree on that's tautological. I'm not going to, that's so dumb and boring.
Yeah, but
Like,
what is the reason why you believe that?
Let me ask the question.
The claim that you're making.
why do I believe that it's boring to debate
Well,
things that we agree
no,
on that are
no.
tautologically the case? That's
No,
what
well,
you want to know?
No, yes, you guys agree that contradictions are false, but he's trying to reason. He's trying to figure out why, how you.
Can I state the question?
You make. Yeah,
Oh
go
my
ahead.
god.
Okay, so you
But
said you.
let's do this one last time. But after this, it seems like he's not going to answer. So you know.
This is hold on.
Or
Shut
that's
up.
what the word means. Like,
Let me
it
ask the
is
question.
What the words mean.
Oh my god, he's muted me.
Okay, listen. It seems like I'm gonna let him ask you the question one more time. You answer the question. It may not be the answer that you like, but that's the answer that he's gonna give. And I think we should move on because it seems like we're repeating ourselves a bit. All right, guys. So when I unmute Zulu, I want you to ask the question, and then Lego, you answer the question, and then let's move on to, something a little more interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Go
So,
ahead.
Lego, you indicated exactly what my concern was. That, well, it's tautologically the case. It's tautologically the case, which is, i.e., we just define it such that it is irrational because it's irrational. That's just how we define things. These are just how we use words. And that is your entire case. It's just, well, this is ought, it just means this. It's just tautological. This is how we're using the words. This is just how we're using the words all the way up. This is the root of your philosophy. Is it not? Do you have some other root? Are you appealing to reality? Or are you just appealing to, oh, that's just how I use the words?
All right, Lego.
All right, so I will just point out. Okay, yeah, when we were talking about, I've answered this so many times. So to me, it just seems like he's desperately grasping for something, and he's getting into this ridiculous
Just answer so we can
argument.
move on.
Okay, well, no, he bloviates, so I'm allowed to do a little bit myself here. I think he's just grasping for straws. He agrees with me already on the point. When you're behaving irrationally, you're not abiding by the rules of logic or logical reasoning. You're not being logical. So yes, if you're behaving in a way that's contradictory, or you have some sort of contradictory desire, what it means for it to be contradictory is that it violates logic. Like it's a P and not P. It is irrational. That's what we mean when we say it's irrational. Is that it's not logical. So yes, tautologically, yes. And he can act like, oh, well, this is just you trying to set up some, I guess maybe he's trying to call it circular or imply that. And I guess, yeah, in a sense, words mean what they mean. Yeah, I mean, you got me. Words mean what they mean. Like, it's nonsense arguments from him because he agrees with me on the premise. He's not actually disagreeing with my position. He's just trying to do this infinite regress of what do words mean. And oh, if words mean something, oh, you're saying words mean something, but those words mean something. It's nonsense.
I think he's asking you what's your basis for the meaning of those words. Like, are they merely just categories in the human mind, or are they something else? Would that be correct, Zulu? Am I right?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's like because there are other alternatives that he could be using, right? And I want to know whether when he says, well, this is objectively true that you should be doing yada yada yada, or this is the case that yada yada yada. When he says those things, what the hell is he actually saying? Because he might just be saying something very different to me, right? Which isn't clear by just his words. He might be doing more and more word sorcery. And I want to know, straight up from him, what the hell do you mean when you say those things? Do you mean, well, I appeal to some category in my brain, which is what the fucking categorical imperative was about, right? Which is about, he gets that straight from fucking Kant, right? I want to know what it is that he's meaning by these sorts of things. What are you talking about? What are you referring to? Are you referring to your consciousness or to reality? That's what I want to know. That's the fundamental question I'm trying to dig down to. And any even reasonably cooperative interlocutor would go down this route with me. And he's not even close to that.
All right,
All
Lego.
right. So rather than answer the same question I've answered so many times, and he seems to think that just pretending not to understand the answer somehow makes it a non-answer, rather than just give the same response. I've answered this question so many times. I'll answer the other person that asked the question because it was a better question. When I say that this is what the words mean, I don't mean that it's some objective reality, separate, mind independent thing that this is what the words mean. I just mean that that's what we use these when we say these words. That's the referent. That's what we're referring to. So whenever I say it's irrational, I mean that it doesn't abide by logic. It's not logical. That's what I mean by irrational.
I have a question for Lego. And I basically agree. I think that the question you're being asked is bad. And I think a better question is if someone were to come up to you with an argument and they were to come up to you and they were to say, if you to present me with an argument and there are contradictory premises in those arguments, I don't think that the presence of contradictory premises has any, makes the conclusion invalid. I would still accept the conclusion. Why is that? Why is it bad for somebody to do that or have that as a part of their system? What's the consequence of that from your point of view?
I'm not a consequentialist, so whenever I say it's bad, I'm just saying that it is irrational. So
no, sorry. When I said consequence, when I said consequence, I literally just meant this decision to evaluate things in this way has a consequence that presumably you think is bad in your ability to evaluate. I don't mean consequentialism.
Okay, but again, for me, bad just means irrational. That's the content of good and bad for me. So whenever I say it's bad, I'm just saying it's irrational. So when you say, well, why is this irrational thing bad? Because to me, the content of good and bad is irrational. So if it's irrational, it's bad.
Then I need to ask a
just
question,
asking me
Lego.
why irrational things are irrational.
Then I think I need to ask, and I think it's an important one. So earlier, whenever you said basically how property is established, it's like this emergent sort of aggregate value of assessments or something like this, but you understand that the ad populum, the appeal to popularity, can't get you to something that's either true or valid or sound, right?
It can get us
So,
to something that's
if you
true. If that is the popular position, then it's true.
that's what would be true. Yeah, but that's all that would be true, not the content of what the popular position. So, if the group came together and said, "Hey, this is what ownership is," that aggregate can't get you to that's what ownership is. You can only say that's what they conclude. No, it's an ad populum.
Because ownership for me is whatever that aggregate concludes. So when you say that
Yeah,
this
but
is
that-
what the aggregate concluded, that to me is ownership. You've fulfilled my definition of ownership. It's
But it
not
can't-
normative, it's descriptive.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that descriptively, them just concluding that something is the case cannot actually be done. Just because you and I and everybody else in this room get together and say, "Hey, the sky is green," that doesn't actually ever translate to a proposition that is true, valid, or sound. meaning
Right.
the
Yeah.
same thing. If
You
it
can't
can't,
just. In one sense, you're right, but in another sense, you're wrong. Because if everyone agrees that the color of the sky is, that's what we're calling green. Well, guess what? Now the sky's green because the color the sky is in reality, the fact of the matter of what light spectrum the sky is, if that's what we call green, guess what? The sky is green because that's what we call that light spectrum.
Lego, I have
We're
just a
just meaning
really
whatever we
quick
use.
yeah, that's
clarification.
that's
Can I
fallacious.
just
What
can I
I'm
just
saying,
interject
bro,
with
is
just
that is
one
that
single question
yeah,
to
it's called
clarify?
ad populum.
Can
Yeah,
I can I just
No,
can I
no,
hold on? Can I
and-
just jump in with one quick question to clarify, and I will stop after that question. I promise you.
No problem. Go ahead, please.
Lego, and then the neuralist can continue with his interrogation of Lego. Lego, would you say that you endorse nominalism, or do you have some other position on the theory of concepts?
Nominalism. I'm not certain of what you even mean by nominalism, to be honest.
Okay, so like nominalism would be like, well, when I say man, what I'm referring to is just like an arbitrary classification. I have just this. By man I mean just Socrates, Aristotle, yada yada yada. Just list off a bunch of individual men, and there isn't actually anything common to all those individual men. That I'm not actually like seeing some Platonic form of man, or doing some sort of Aristotelian abstraction of all the men. Like, would you say that you're a nominalist? That where it's just a name, it's just a label for a bunch of particulars.
Well, you're saying that it's a label for particulars, but that they have nothing in common. If by nominalism you just mean that we're creating arbitrary categories, then yeah, I would say we're creating arbitrary categories.
Okay, neuralist, you can continue if you want.
well, I'm very, very tempted to follow that line of reasoning because it's super interesting. Because metaphysically, I don't think that's actually what we're doing. But instead, I would actually like to try to see if we can't build some common ground between the positions. So, I am a professed ANCAP on the ethical side of things, not on the practical side of things. That being said, in the sense that you are often talking about Zulu in terms of property and what constitutes ownership, I think you're often talking about from the sort of like metaphysical level. Like if I come across an object in reality, right, and there's no contest there to keep me from taking possession of that thing, like just metaphysically, it's mine, right? And I can use all kinds of things to justify that, but at the same time, I don't think there's any problem with coming along and saying, hey, there's a group of us here and we're looking at something that is of interest to all of us, and we conclude that we all kind of own it, right? Like we have general control over it contractually. Like I think you can totally do this. And I don't think those two positions actually conflict with each other. I just think that one's more metaphysical and one is more like a higher level up. Just one like level up. It's like more like a conceptual engagement, an understanding between people, like how we're going to be approaching this thing that we all collectively own. You don't even have to use the term own really, but like collectively engage with on conceptual basis as opposed to force. Does that kind of make sense? Like I don't think your guys' positions are contradictory between each other.
Well, I would strongly disagree, because I don't think that I'm just saying, well, when I come into control of something, then I own that thing. That is what I would, and Kinsella would class as the mere possessor ethic. I think the mere possessor ethic falls into an immediate contradiction. The contradiction is that, well, the second that, basically that ownership and possession have to be distinct, and everybody in every conflict ever presupposes this. So if we have Crusoe and Friday, and Zuri, and however many other people, and they have this mere possessor ethic, well, if Crusoe and Friday are over conflict over the stick, they both have to presume, hey, the other guy might win this conflict, he might gain possession of the stick, but I'd still own it. Or else, he wouldn't be in the conflict. He would not be trying to get the stick if he didn't think that he owned it, as distinct from possessing it. Right? So possession and ownership have to be different. This is why I think it's purely normative. And I think it's a subset of ethics called law.
Well, hold on here. So let's play with this, because I think you're onto something. But here's the thing: is the ownership is that next level up, right? It's the where you go from looking at the facts of reality. Like, you know how you say, like, hey, can you look out the window and see a right? Of course, you can't do that. But what you can most certainly do is look out the window and see me holding a stick. Right? I have possession of it. The ownership concept, the one that comes in after it, that requires a sort of like, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, like a sort of base concept that's like possession. I think I am entitled to possess that thing. But that's a second level up from I merely possess something. That is something that you can, like, tautologically, empirically verify. Like, if I'm holding a stick and it's mine, it's in my possession. The only way that you can initiate conflict there is if you tell me that I have no justified reason for having the stick, because you have a justified reason for having the stick. But the thing about it is I already had the stick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
and I didn't have to contend with anybody.
It's a similar line of reasoning, and I think the one difference is that the introduction I'm making is the non-aggression principle. Then when the and I have a separate proof for the non-aggression principle. When you bring the non-aggression principle in, which is normative, which brings it way up into law, that brings in the norm, the normative side. And I don't think it's conceptually valid to not have any norms. I think Hume was completely mistaken on this point. I think he was an idiot.
It's not purely passions, right? Of course.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the norms that I'm talking about that I'm challenging here. I'm saying that your norms that you're talking about, that sort of the sort of metaphysical necessity for humans to have norms, that's not the issue. I think we do have to have that. But what I'm saying is what Lego is telling you is like, hey, in our normative sort of sphere, descriptively, how we can come across solutions to that issue is have contracts where we mutually agree between one another instead of force one another to engage with a certain piece of property in a certain way.
Yeah, so
I think that you can most certainly do that. For example, me and my wife are currently living in an apartment right now that we co-lease, right? Like, of course, I can literally show you the lease. We're both responsible for this thing. If this thing burns down, it's not just my wallet, it's her wallet. It's not just my taxes,
I think that's
taxes.
an invalid contract. So I don't think either of you guys have anything to do with that. If the contract is stated as, we're going to trade this to both you and your wife, if it's not stated that, if it's stated as the landlord still owns it, but he's going to rent it out to both of you, then it's fine. But there has to be one owner.
You're not wrong there, Holder. So let me try to parse this out. So it's stated in the contract what the owner, the supposed owner, can or cannot do in terms of the property, in terms of our contract between each other. And that is just a fact. Like, there are certain things that this guy actually cannot do in terms of the law. To me, he cannot just walk into the house.
Okay, so it is like a landlord situation then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's perfectly legitimate, and like,
but what I'm saying
can be done with title transfer theory.
All I'm saying is that there are contracts. There is a contractual way that humans can interact with each other that does not violate anything fundamental to capitalism. As a matter of fact,
right? Absolutely.
I've had actually 3 landlords.
I don't want to be like misunderstood as like being against contracts in general. I'm fine with contracts, but I just think they're a strict thing. I think a contract has to define the terms of the transfer of title to property. That's all a contract can do. And that's what distinguishes it from a promise. Like, a promise is, I will play a song at your birthday party tomorrow. That's not a contract. I just promised to do that. Now, a contract might be, on the condition that I play at your birthday party tomorrow, you'll give me $100.
Yeah, like if you pay
on the
me,
condition
right?
I don't, I'll pay you $100. Right? Because that's actually transferring title to $100 between us.
So then what would be the problem? Okay, so you're saying that a man and a wife cannot have that contract between each other given ownership over the same house.
Yeah, no, it's not like, my point was that it's not possible to have, like, say I own the house. I can't say I will trade this house to you and your wife. That's a contradiction. I can't trade it to both you and your wife at the same time.
What if we stipulate in the contract all of the things that need to be stipulated for that to happen?
I don't think there is anything that could be stipulated. So there has to be a single owner at any given time.
I'm giving it to you and her.
That's not possible.
That's all that needs to be stipulated in the contract.
No, because then what if you and your wife disagree over what is to be done over the house? Well, you can't resolve that conflict.
Well, then
so it's an invalid property arrangement. So that was an invalid contract.
We would have to do the mediation thing. We would have to do the mediation thing between us and the person that.
Right, but then you're adopting the contract. But then you're adopting the contract theory of property, which is a stolen concept fallacy.
No, at this point. I'm just wait. I'm actually not doing that. I'm saying that I'm just adopting the contract theory of contracts. Like, I'm not saying that we own this place.
So you don't own it. So there still is one owner.
Correct. We do not own it.
Okay, so it's fine. It's fine.
Yes,
if there's only one owner, then it's fine. You can have whatever crazy shit you want. You can imagine crazy shit with title transfer theory. Like, people have done it already.
Okay.
But so long as there's still always one owner.
Your and Lego's position. That's it.
Right, but Lego just refuses to even acknowledge property theory in general. Like, he doesn't care about it.
Yeah, I think you guys are actually talking about different things, and because of this, talking over each other. We're talking
that's because Lego wanted to win a debate rather than actually care about philosophy. But he needed to care about philosophy to win this debate.
Well, luckily for you, Daddy's here, so.
I just wanted my argument addressed, which wasn't because he couldn't.
It was addressed. That's why the whole debate was over.
Well, hold on, Lego, real quick.
You called it irrelevant bullshit, but now it's what the
No.
Wait, question
no.
real quick for you, Lego.
I called your rules lawyering irrelevant bullshit.
No, you called P2 irrelevant.
Bring me the clip. The stream is live streaming right now. Bring me the clip of where I said that your argument is irrelevant. Bring me that clip.
Yep. You said P2 was irrelevant bullshit. You said it. It's on your recording.
Bring me the clip.
Everybody heard it.
I want the full context.
You have the clip. You have it already. You recorded it. You have the clip.
So you want me to look for the clip that you assert exists, but I assert doesn't.
You have it. You already have the recording.
Bring me the clip. Bring me the clip at any point down the line.
Going back to P2. All right.
Yeah, this live stream is Creative Commons, so you can clip it and put it on your own channel if you want.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anyone else have a question or anything like that they want to ask the two guys here debating?
Well, even if somebody does, I'm going to leave now.
He just
so,
gave me permission to upload this.
Boop.